All right. Yes. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. This is impromptu special broadcast here on the Chaos Rain channel. As you know, I am Chaos Rain here. And today, as you see the thumbnail, as you see the presentation ahead, now, as you know, the one they call Yeezy has been trending lately, and he is reaping either the rewards or consequence to one's actions. But nonetheless, there's some more deeper and some more problematic that has to be discussed. And I'm speaking generally for the black man. Other men could listen to this, and it might apply to you as well, but mostly let's have a conversation with black men, especially in regards to divorce and the consequence. You got to understand that in life there's consequence, rewards and consequence, everything, and you must understand what you get into, and you have to make the decisions. Is the rewarding outweigh the consequence, or the consequence outweighing the reward? Nonetheless, we're gonna have this discussion. So I have a special guest today to have this conversation ahead. I bring to you the first time live here on the Chaos Rain channel, the one and only Dr. Blaque. What's good, Dr. Blaque, aka Paco, or Paco? As he get his mic ready. Let me see. Hold on a second, guys. Let me do this because all right, sorry about that, guys. Continue on the conversation. As Dr. Blaque get his thing situated, make sure y'all guys share this in your social media. Sharing is Karen. Thing situated, and it looks like my mic sounds pretty good. And like I said, hit that like button. Likes are free. Likes are free. Last time I checked, so don't be a stranger. Hit that like button. I see him back. All right, Dr. Blaque, you there?
Brother Chaos, what's going on? I'm here.
I'm good. Oh, good. So before we have this discussion, if you don't mind telling people a little bit about yourself before we begin.
What up, world? It's your boy, Dr. Blaque. You might have seen me all on TikTok. And if you haven't, go to my page on TikTok because I spend my time talking about relationships, relationship issues, and basically how I feel that relationships today are struggling because the ideas that we're trying to go on are obsolete. The ideas of relationships that we're trying to use are from previous generations, and the world is very different. So we're struggling trying to live in the past. And my purpose has been to update us, to get us an updated version, update our software on how to deal with relationships. So I'm a Caribbean American. I served in the military, and I traveled the world a lot, working for the military after my active duty service. I graduated.
Hello. My mic cut off. Okay.
The same ceremony. And I've been considering what it takes to be married and what do you need to be married for many years. And I'm actually practiced it and used it on how I chose my wife. I got married relatively late, what some people consider late. I got married about 37, almost 38 years old, and I've been married for 4 years. And I'm trying to share with people the things that I learned that benefit me and the things that I learned that got in my way of being married. And I hope that I can help people to do better, those people who actually want to get married. And it's fitting that we're going to talk about Kanye West, or he's just going to be a kind of introduction to the conversation, because Kanye West had all the red flags and did all the wrong things and got exactly the result that anyone who does what he did would get. There was no way that he would ever have a lasting, successful marriage.
All right, excellent, excellent, excellent. And like always, guys, and the ladies especially, I know most dudes, it's something that y'all don't want to hear, but I'm no proponent to have conversations, even uncomfortable ones. So for those that's watching this, or please share the stream, like the stream. This is gonna be a very good one. Paco, in your own cause I know you married now for, I'm not sure if people want to know how long you've been married, but before you even gone to the route of marriage, you and your wife now have gone through your own trying times. You get me? I'm not sure if you want to expound on it, but before we go into the things, we understand the point is that when you try and make something, even with a marriage, there's always going to be ups and downs. And I think a lot of people not being transparent enough to let people know, say, if you're going to get in this, if you're not already putting work into the relationship you're in already, it's going to be twice as hard once you're in a contract agreement, which is marriage. So I don't know if you want to go into detail about that.
Well, I definitely had problems in my marriage. I'm not perfect, and I had, and we have issues that we work through and we're working through. But I think that what people need to understand is, most importantly, that marriage is a job. And so the reason why I say that all the time, and the reason why my book that I'm still working on actually had a delay, so it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to get it out this year, hopefully early next year. But in my book, I'm talking about, and I constantly bring up I make the analogy of marriage with a business, a run business, is because marriage is work. And if you're not interested in doing that work, you're not going to be successful. Matter of fact, success is complicated. Success is difficult. Everybody who's successful at everything have to put in significant work. And if you're in a competitive space trying to be successful, that means you have to put in more work and be better than other people in order to get recognition. And a lot of people quit or give up on a task because they determine that it's not worth it, or they just don't want to do the work. They don't want to do the work it takes to beat the competition. And the first thing I want to tell people, especially the ladies out there, because it's just a fact that women are in general, not all women, there are lots of women who are different than this, but in general, women are less competitive than men. Men have testosterone and we're driven to be more competitive. But for the ladies out there who need to hear this, selecting a mate and keeping your mate is a competition. And whether you like it or not, selecting a mate and keeping a mate is a competition. Whether you're heterosexual or homosexual, selecting a mate and keeping a mate is a competition, because anyone that you find valuable, someone else will see that value. The value is not, doesn't disappear or is only active with your eyes. Anything that you see valuable in someone else sees it. Now, the reason why it's hard for some people to grasp that is because a lot of time people don't see your value. Each of us as individuals have had a time in our life where we feel undervalued. And each of us has had a time where we wish someone recognized something we bring to the table. Back to the work analogy, a lot of us go to work every day and feel like our bosses don't value what we bring, or don't see us as great as we could be, or as great as we think we are. And that value proposition is important. And in business, we talk about that. That's part of running a business. It's part of trying to get a promotion. It's part of moving forward in your career, understanding your value and understanding if you can bring more value to the company, and then making sure that the people who have the authority to give you a promotion or a raise recognize that value. So value propositions are part of an essential part of a relationship. And I say in my book, and I say many times on my page, there are lots of relationships. Any interaction with two or more human beings on a consistent basis is a relationship. You have a relationship with your parents. You have a relationship with your siblings. You have a relationship with your extended family. You have a relationship with your doctor. You have a relationship with your lawyer. You have a relationship with your kids' teachers. And too many of us don't have a relationship with our children's teachers. And COVID put that on blast. And we had a lot of problems because we should have been having a relationship with our children's teachers. We have a relationship with the IRS. We have a relationship with our employer. We have a relationship with our employees. We have a relationship with our service providers. Consistent interaction with two or more human beings is a relationship. So if we understand that we have a lot of relationships, then I said, well, what is the most consistent, successful relationship out there? And clearly it's business. There's nothing that we do that has more success than the business arena. All of us either work or know someone who works. And so we know inherently how business understands value, creates value, produces value, or in often cases neglects value. If you're going to start a new business and you're writing a business plan, the first thing your business plan is going to say is, what do you do that the market needs? That is business, providing a value. And so if you're going out there looking for a partner, looking for a mate, you are entering an arena of competition where you're looking for someone who other people also will value. No one's out there saying, I want the person who is useless. We might say we want the person that nobody else has, but do we really want the person no one else wants? Because why would we want them if no one else wants them? And a lot of celebrities expose this question all the time. They break up with one person one day and they're right back in the game again because they never have to question if they're wanted until they are questioning it. What was that Johnny Depp's situation that he had recently in court?
Yeah.
The young lady who he was in court with, a lot of people don't seem to be a fan of hers anymore. Her value fell significantly when people found out that she went as far in their shared bed to make a point. And I don't think anybody knows what the point is. And I don't think anybody wants to risk finding out what point that she was trying to make. So her value decreased astronomically.
Matter of fact, she might, I figure her career in Hollywood might be done right now, as we know, because the role she took on the new Aquaman movie that's released next year, they didn't put her in most major scenery, like scenes. They had to start pull back her role because of this trial she had with Johnny Depp. So it tells me that people know inside what's really going on.
I mean, we all know now. Anybody who took the time to watch the trial knows that that's not the kind of person we want to date or be associated with or hang out with or I mean, maybe we'll hang out, but what we learned from that trial is we can't trust her in our private space. And I don't think anybody, there's someone out there that'll date her, I'm sure, but I'm pretty sure Johnny Depp's, value is similar. Not particularly trustworthy. A lot of people aren't breaking down the door to date him either. He's always been quirky, as they say, and his value as quirky is going to be hard to sell, harder and harder to sell as you get older. And that's very important. That's a lesson that we can learn from. The more eccentric you are, the more on the edge you are, the more rare you are, or the more different that you behave in society, the less likely you are going to be able to find people who value that because it's rare. Some people live to find something rare, and some rare things are obvious in value. But most rare things, the value isn't obvious. This value proposition concept needs to be talked about more, and we all need to understand it better. And so in my book, I'm talking about management principles overlapped into relationship principles, those that match, those that are valuable. Everything in business doesn't go into romance. That's why business is one set of relationships and romance is a different set of relationships. But there are foundational pieces that we use every day in business as people who are employed or in the business arena that we can also use in our romance. And I'm saying that we should use those business principles because we're already familiar with it. A lot of people are trying to reinvent the wheel in this whole romance area, in the romance sector. We're trying to just create something totally new and different. But when you create something new and different, if you guys ever watch Shark Tank, to go to another business analogy, if you watch Shark Tank, you hear them always talk about educating the market. So if you, Brother Chaos, came up with a new way to date right now, even if it's the perfect way to date, your problem wouldn't be your product, the perfect way to date. Your problem would be educating the market that your product is what it says it is, and the cost analysis of doing that. And so a lot of the sharks, the investors on Shark Tank will say, "Hey, you got a great idea, but I'm not going to put in the work or money to educate the market on this. It might be a great idea, but great ideas aren't enough." If you pay attention to Shark Tank, the investors only invest in something that is established, something that they can see where it's going, and that has to be how they're going to get their money back. Now, people have pushed back on you and I doing shows talking about getting their money because people are so quick to say money isn't everything. And so let's beat them to the punch, brother. We're not going to let anyone come on and say money isn't everything. We said it first. Money isn't everything. So don't waste your time calling in and telling us money isn't everything, because we already said it. Money is not everything. But nothing is everything. The word everything means everything, and there is nothing that's everything. So we don't have to say money isn't everything. Money isn't everything. People aren't everything. Love isn't everything. Nothing is everything. So it goes without saying, but people love to say it. People who are broke like to give people who have money or who aspire for money advice. And that leads me to another important point. Don't take advice from people unless you want to emulate them. Don't take advice from people unless you want to do what they're doing. If you see a person who's giving you advice on money and they ain't got $2, 2 pennies rubbed together, you accept that risk. You're telling yourself that, hey, I don't care about the results because I can see that they don't know what they're doing. And go ahead and take that person's money advice if they don't have any money. Most people know to take advice from people who are doing what they want to do. So when you want to come be a better cook, you're going to go buy a book written by a chef. When you want to be a better parent, you're going to go write a book written by a person who is what's the word? The children's doctor. Pediatrician. Thank you. A pediatrician. You know, if you want to do, most of us know if you want to make money, you're going to take advice from a person who has money. But too many of us let people give us unsolicited free advice that aren't even good at what they're doing. Or what they're telling us about, excuse me. And so that goes for every aspect in life. So you should take advice from people who are married if you want to be married. And that's one of my pitches, to tell people, listen to me. Why should we listen to you, Dr. Blaque? Because I'm happily married. I'm happily married now. I may not be happily married forever. I'm not happily married every single minute of every day, but I'm currently happily married. And I also did research from other people who are happily married. And I've also been single, which kind of goes without saying, you know, you're not born married. So I've gone on a journey that's led me to some success, which I think gives me credibility to comment on success because I've done it, just like other people who are successful in different arenas. And they talk about that, you know, Elon Musk and what's your boy who does Berkshire Hathaway? The great investor from Berkshire Hathaway, the old guy.
Well, I mean, Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett. His whole business, his billions are strictly based on him giving advice about what he does. Billions of dollars, not millions or hundreds of millions, billions of dollars based on him giving advice. He runs the most successful investment firm maybe in human history, even though he's lost a couple billion in the last year due to inflation. So I think that lesson, taking advice from people who are already successful, is foundational. We have to consider that. We have to do that. And we have to stop taking advice from people who aren't successful. Not that they don't have any chance of being right. A person who hasn't done something does have a chance of guessing right or being right. But you take a risk every time you listen to them. And if you're going to listen to them, listen, but verify. What did President Roosevelt say? You know, trust but verify, right? It's not enough to just trust somebody blindly. It's not enough for you and I to have a agreement and I just trust you blindly. I have to verify. So if a person who isn't married is giving you marriage advice, verify it. And the way you verify it is with people who've been married or people who are married. Because that person may not have verified. That's the risk that you're taking. When you're taking this advice from someone who hasn't done it, you're taking the risk that they haven't verified it. Verification is everything. We want to know if we can know. is this thing something that actually works or not? So your life will be the verification, or someone else's life will be the verification. It's better to let someone else verify it first, unless it's your original idea. If it's not your original idea, don't be somebody else's guinea pig. I mean, that's literally what guinea pigs are. Guinea pigs are beings who we use to verify in the medical field our ideas about a cure. And guess what? Not all those guinea pigs live through those tests, right? So you shouldn't go out there and be someone else's guinea pig in business, in romance, or anything else. Not unless you consider, the risk is worth it. I mean, if they're going to give you a lot of money and you're not going to die, maybe think about it. But this is free advice from your cousin who smokes weed all day and has never had a successful relationship. What's the point in taking that advice, right, Chaos?
Yeah. One thing I want to ask you is personally, can someone really take advice or take advice seriously? Not seriously, but take advice to a man that was once married, not once but multiple times.
Great question. And I say this for men and women. If you are the person who learned from your mistakes, can I take your advice? Heck yeah. Heck yeah. If you are learning from your mistakes or have learned from your mistakes, why would I? So the analogy I use for this is life is a journey. Let's think of it as a road, and there are potholes and ditches, big pitfalls in the road, and even cliffs in the road. If someone is telling me to not take more steps down this path, and I can't see the path, but they're coming back from that way, and they said, if you continue down this path, you're going to fall into a pitfall or into a ditch or off a cliff. If I see them coming from that direction, it makes sense for me to listen to their advice. Because I can see something. I got some information. I see that they are coming from the direction. So that tells me that at least they've had experience in this path. It doesn't tell me if they did it right or did it wrong. It tells me that they've been there. They have life experience. And I know that I haven't been there. So if a divorced person is giving me advice on marriage and they say, don't do A, B, and C because that leads to divorce, at bare minimal, I should consider it. Bare minimal, because they did it and they got divorced. They didn't get the intended result and they're trying to save me from that. Now, credibility comes into play because we can say, wait a second, are they a credible witness? Are they looking out for me? Are they trying to set me up? Are they lying to me? But all of those things have again, the value proposition is this worth listening to? What is my risk of listening? Because if they're telling me not to go in a direction that leads to disaster, and I choose to not go in that direction, what did I really miss? The biggest thing I missed is the disaster. It's not like what are the chances that they're hiding success from me on the other side of that? What are the chances that they're telling me, don't watch out for this pitfall? Really a pot of gold. That's even more unlikely. It's more likely that they're telling me the truth than they're not telling me the truth. It's more likely that my pot of gold is in another direction and that they're really not hiding it from me. Because if they were hiding it for themselves, they would be in a successful marriage. That's the pot of gold. So
welcome everybody.
Divorced people absolutely can give great sound advice. It doesn't mean that they're going to be 100% right, but they shouldn't be held to that standard because no one's 100% right. I could give good advice. I'm happily married and I can't give 100% right all the time. So that's not the goalpost.
Welcome everybody that's watching now. Make sure you guys hit the like button. Likes are free. I know ladies in the building. I think maybe I might see some two fellows possibly, but everybody come into the stage, man. Listen good, you know what I'm saying? And I hope y'all guys have some questions. And always, if depending how the stream is, I'll open up for anybody that has any questions for Dr. Blaque or myself. Mostly Dr. Blaque because he's my guest. Make sure you hit the like button, share the stream, and like always, sharing is caring. Now, one of the few things people always harp on men, especially black men that were divorced more than one time. And I asked this question because a lot of people asked when Mr. Samuels was still around that he was divorcee, not once, but twice. But he admits what he did wrong in the marriage, always. And he never puts blame on the women. I feel like because he's protecting of, the people that he were close with. I mean, the people that he was close with and had a very long bond, right? It worked out or not. And I have no problem with a person that has attempted marriage and eventually didn't work out, because in this Western world, as you know, Paco, as time progresses, we are now treading halfway in, halfway out in regards to marriage with men and women today in America. is roughly over 50 now. You know, if we would go through this or go by percentage wise, that it's like flipping a coin. You might be married one day and you might be out the door the next day. So people that have gone through it, they should be more have an understanding of what they did wrong, and they will tell you in Cabral instead of preaching a scarcity mindset or the fear not to go through it. But Paco, why do you think a good portion of men, not majority, but portion of men preach a scarcity mindset when it comes to the divorce aspect of marriage and telling young men not to go through it?
So I consider this question is very important. I had to consider it for myself before I got married. And one of the things that I say is that everyone should have a long engagement because, first of all, one of the most obsolete and obviously untrue statements of the previous generations that people were saying all the time in response to marriage was that they said, hey, marriage is forever. And part of that was a religious-based concept. So this was easy for me to see because I'm not religious. I was raised religious, but I'm no longer religious. So it's obvious to me that a church, a temple, a religion, a theology telling you that something is forever, they're not being honest with you. And what they used to do in the past was they didn't allow you to get divorced. So when you got married, you just were married, no matter what you did. And this is important. So I hope people are paying attention. No matter what you did, let's call it 1,000 years ago, no matter what you did as a man, you would be married to your wife. Your wife belonged to you. Women were property. Women were chattel. A lot of people who are Christian love to talk about in the time of Jesus. Well, in the time of Jesus, women didn't have rights. In Jesus' community, women didn't have rights. In the greater community at large, I don't care what continent, be it Africa, be it North America, South America, it took a long time for society to recognize women's rights. I know that, a lot of men in the manosphere, all the red pill guys, they don't like to acknowledge this point, but it's true. Women didn't have rights. And so if the woman didn't have the right to divorce you or the right to give her opinion about the marriage, then we made it pretty simple. It's up to the man. And then the man wasn't allowed for centuries to get divorced. Then eventually the powerful just realized that they wanted to have autonomy. They wanted to flex their power. So once the church started allowing kings and kings to get divorced from their wives, so the choice was either go back to polygamy. This is a European thing. It's more popular because we all come from, as Americans, we're coming from a European, or Westerners, we're coming from European origins. So in Europe, the kings were upset or didn't like some of their wives, and the church told them they couldn't get divorced. But eventually, after wars over these divorces, the church said, okay, you can get a divorce if you follow these steps. Well, once the rich and the wealthy, the leadership, the power base could get divorced, then the peasants, the regular people are like, well, we want to get divorced too. So it took some decades, a couple of centuries, but eventually all people have to follow the church's rules on how to get divorced. The women still didn't have a choice. It was always a man's choice, but at least there was things that the woman could do to push her husband's hand to get free. In today's society, a lot of people, a lot of cultures still don't have that. So you have the Christians who came to the realization we're going to make up, the church is going to make up a way for us to get divorced if we need to. But if you're a Muslim, if you're living in a Muslim country in the Gulf states, in Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Iraq, Iran, Pakistan, those countries, the women are not allowed to get divorced. That the women can't, by law, decide for themselves if they're going to get divorced. The husband still has the final say and gets to decide if he will grant his wife's request to be divorced. And in many cases, they don't. And that's just a fact. I mean, I worked in Saudi Arabia for 3 years. I worked in Afghanistan for 3 years. There are some areas where women's rights is becoming more familiar. But the point I'm making overall is if only one gender gets to decide if you're going to get divorced, you can keep the divorce rates low because you just tell the man, hey, listen, suck it up. That's your wife. Deal with it. And the husband doesn't have to not do anything. He doesn't have any restrictions. He has a girlfriend here. He got a girlfriend there. He got another family, whatever it is. He has one legal wife, and all the other girls that he has relationships with, the wife just has to deal with it. The state doesn't recognize her. And people who are in polygamous communities mention these points. They say, what's the big deal about being polygamous? Because it wasn't like the men were being monogamous. So all we're doing is saying the state only recognizes one woman. And that's the situation in the United States and in many countries in the West. They only recognize one woman, but they haven't made any restrictions, not that they should, on men not being with other women. I mean, look at our politicians. How many of our politicians have a wife and kids with other women? And the case of the last president, he had kids. He had a wife. He had multiple wives and a bunch of kids with a bunch of women while he was with his wife. Or in my research for my book, I was reading about Steve Harvey. I read his book. Steve Harvey had a girlfriend every time he got married. He had a girlfriend, divorced his previous wife, and married the girlfriend. Even his current wife is his side chick that he left his previous wife, his second wife, for his current third wife, or if she was the third
wife. You say
Marcia?
Pause. You say Marcia? I don't know if that's her name right. The chick from Tennessee was the side chick.
Absolutely.
Whoa!
Absolutely.
And no one really talked about that.
Yeah. People don't talk about that because Steve Harvey has a successful book and he's selling people a story. And he doesn't want to talk about that, but he literally talks about it in his book. It's right there for you. A lot of people were joking about Think Like a Man, Kayne about Think. And I was wondering, what the heck are y'all laughing about? Think Like a Man isn't helpful to build relationships. If you read it in the first few chapters, the first thing Steve Harvey talks about, like any normal person, the timeline of his life, he how to become a comedian. He was working in the car dealerships in Detroit, which was normal back in the day, Motor Town. And Motor City, whatever, and he left that and he pursued his career and he had a girlfriend. He left his girlfriend. He got married to another girl. Then that girl, in the book, I think he was on his second wife at the time. So the girl he was with, his first wife, he was messing with another girl. The other girl, he finally left his wife for her. So this is the timeline of the book. This is present day now. So when he leaves his wife for her, she's been with him for a while. And he's in the chapter, he's talking about how she caught him cheating with another girl. The girl, his side chick that he left his wife for, he's with her now. He hasn't married her yet, but she catches him cheating with another girl. And she just walks out. He's giving her praise for not making a scene. And she doesn't talk to him, and he comes to her and says, I'm sorry, kinda, what do you want to do? And she's like, let me know when you're ready to grow up. This is his story, mind you. Let me know when you're ready to grow up. And so he says, that's when I knew I had to settle down and be with her. This is what he's pitching. He didn't focus on the fact that he has issues with monogamy. He didn't focus on the fact that he was being unfaithful to the ladies he was with. What he was focusing on was how the women were being understanding of his mistakes. And that's great. I think people should be understanding of others. But I don't think, back to the original question you asked, I don't think that we should be taking advice from people who haven't figured something out. Steve Harvey shouldn't be giving marriage advice if he hasn't figured out how to be faithful in his marriage. He shouldn't be giving relationship advice if he hasn't figured out how to have a successful relationship. He's a successful person, so he'll always have people who want to marry him, but none of us should listen to Steve Harvey's relationship advice without recognizing that he's a failure when it comes to relationships. An utter failure. I've never treated a woman the way he treats the women in his book. That's a best-selling book, a best-selling relationship book. He talks about 90 days. So he came up with the 90-day thing, if y'all remember. He came up with the 90-day women should wait.
Like 3 months. 3 months,
yes,
right?
3 months. Women should wait 3 months before they have sex with a guy. He came up with that after he never, ever did that. He never dated a woman who waited 90 days or he waited 90 days for her. So my question to him, if I ever get a chance to talk to him about relationships or anybody who advocates for his concept of the 90 days, what do you do as the person who's waiting? So the guy has to wait. The woman's making the guy wait. The guy, what do you do if you're the woman making the guy wait 90 days and he's waiting with you, but he's not waiting with you? He's letting you wait. You're being celibate for 90 days, but he's sleeping with other people. I am yet to hear someone answer that question. You are putting him on 90 days. You two have agreed that you're not going to sleep with him, ladies, until the 90 days is up. You've been celibate for the 90 days. He's not, whether you know it or not. Let's assume that you don't know. Let's just say for this analogy, you don't know, but he's not waiting. What do you do when you found out that he's not waiting, but you're waiting the 90 days? How does that help you? How is that good advice? What benefit do you get for waiting 90 days if the two of you can't be sure that you're both celibate? Now, in the movie, they overlooked it, right? In the movie, the guy did it. Think Like a Man 1, the actor, he actually did it after they were back and forth, blah, blah, blah.
I think it came out like a decade ago.
Yeah, Think Like a Man was like 2011 or something. Heck yeah.
2012. I think it's 2012.
2012, Kevin Hart was one of his first big movies. That was one of his breakout movies. But he was like, hey, Miss Loretta. So Miss Loretta was the mother of the guy who ended up waiting the 90 days because he was a player, right? They had all these different characters. So anyway, he finally waits the 90 days at the end. But what if he didn't wait? They never addressed it. No one has addressed this question. So to me, these are the type of questions that have to be answered before you know if a plan is good. Maybe because of my military mind, maybe because of my management degree. When you think of a plan, you have to think of all the things that can go wrong and what you could do about it. There's some things that are out of your power, but there's some things in your power. The point I'm making is this question has never been addressed at all publicly by anyone that I've seen in my research. What do you do? It doesn't have to be a woman. It's for the ladies. The women in Steve Harvey's book, he recommends that the women hold the men to this. So women, you're supposed to make the man wait 90 days. But what do you do if you're the one waiting 90 days as the woman and he's not? And even for us men, if we want to try, if I'm saying I'm going to be celibate for 90 days for my lady and she's out here doing her thing, what am I supposed to do with that? Where does the relationship go from there? And you can't say, well, it's just over, because how can you ever be sure that the person's waiting? Are you supposed to lock them up in a cage? Were y'all supposed to be on an island together 90 days and not do nothing? I mean, how are you supposed to execute this that makes sense? And this is why I don't give Steve Harvey credit. This is why he's clearly a comedian. And this is why I really don't give him credit, because if you look at his life, he's not living what he's selling. He's a snake oil salesman. He is not a practical person, but he has power. He's famous. And it's easy for him to sell a book where a person like myself is a regular guy. People are going to be more scrutinizing of me, which I think should be the other way around. Shouldn't you be more scrutinizing of the famous person? Because I don't have the ability. I don't have millions of women coming after me. I've never been famous. So I'm more likely to succeed due to my lower status than he. I mean, famous people, how are you going to get away? If you're Chris Brown, how are you going to get away from women for 90 days to be with one woman? Mm-hmm. Or any of these other, if you're a football player, you're a basketball player, all these things. So I don't think that that's good advice. And I don't think it does anything, because 90 days isn't long enough to determine anything. What did we, even if we succeeded at this, what did we learn from 90 days of celibacy?
Personally, in my opinion, I'm not saying if wrong with celibacy, but we gotta be honest in this context that if you're not virgins, the reverse is you are engaged in some form of intercourse.
Preach.
Either you're having sex with a physical person or you're doing yourself. And then once you entertain sex and you bust a nut from a man or woman, I'm gonna be raw because it's afternoon. I don't care what y'all say. You are not in the business to sit there and say, I'm going to wait before you bust wide open for me. You're not going to wait, ladies, until I sit there, blow your back out. We're real people here. We're having this honest conversation today. So all this thing about 90 days, 6 months, I'm not saying you should have sex the first day, but goddamn, we should have been waiting months. Why?
And so I think that the way we could go about that is we should say on the first date, what's comfortable for each of us. And so this is how I deal with it. Like I said, my purpose is to create a system of thinking that would allow us to have an updated approach to romance. If we have an updated approach to romance, I think that's the key to having a lasting marriage, because there is no guarantees for marriage. You cannot guarantee anything for life. You can't guarantee health for life. You can't guarantee income for life. People go to college and can't guarantee a damn job. Think about all these people who are paying for these Division I degrees in college, and the college don't guarantee you a job after. You went and paid $50,000 to go to daggone North Carolina, and when you graduate, they give you a piece of paper and tell you good luck. They don't guarantee you nothing. If you're unemployed, oh well. So it is not practical in life to guarantee something for life. The longer out it is, the less a guarantee it is. That's why the bank doesn't guarantee your loans for life. That's why the federal government doesn't guarantee the bank's loans for life. Everything has a time limit. Marriage is one of those things that doesn't have a time limit. So it's going to be infinitely more difficult to make any guarantees. And our previous generations, our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and so on, they were lying to us. They were lying to us that there's some guarantee. The religious people who are telling you that God's going to make it work were lying to us. The United States is currently at over 50% divorce rate and hauling at light speeds to 60% divorce rate. The previous president has been divorced 3 times and currently working on his 4th, because we know that his tapes came out of him cheating on his wife while she was pregnant with their current child. So there are lots of people out there who are not monogamous and who are not following the rules of their own marriage, because every relationship can have a different set of rules, and they're not following their own rules. So we can't guarantee anything for life, but we're going to try. We're going to try in a marriage to make long-term, the longest term guarantee. We're going to say, hey, we're going to be in it. I don't know how to make that successful. I don't have any secrets to keep your marriage together. What I advocate, what I feel like I can do, what we all can do is we can prepare better for this long journey. It would be like you and I get in a spaceship and we're traveling to the stars. The next closest star after the sun is, 200 years away with our ability to travel now. The next closest star after the sun is 200 years away with our ability to travel now. Even if we come up with a traveling system twice as fast as the current system we have, it will still be 200 years. There's no way that we can't live long enough to get to the next closest star. But let's say we came up, because this is what science fiction is about, we came up with a way to live long enough, cryostasis or whatever. And so we said, all right, Chaos, we're going to go to this next star. We're going to go to the Goldilocks area of that star and find this Earth-like planet, and we're going to start our new settlement. Mm-hmm. We can't guarantee anything, can we, Chaos?
No.
That's a long journey.
You want to know the guarantee? The only guarantee is life and death.
Death is what we can guarantee, because we're going to say but we're actually trying to fight death and we can't guarantee life. So we literally can't guarantee anything, because we might survive if our cryostasis pods work, or if somebody comes up with something while we're up there, but we can't guarantee anything. So that analogy, I hope, puts into perspective the concept that marriage is trying to sell us on the guarantees. Guarantees are like they used to say, you and I heard this as children. Mama said, a promise is a comfort to a fool. If someone's promising you something and that makes you feel good, you're a fool. Because promises are guarantees that you shouldn't feel comfortable with. It may work, it may not. You should always understand that a promise, like any other thing, is not guaranteed. We as humans don't have the power to guarantee much of anything. And the longer time it takes, the less our ability to guarantee it. So marriage is supposed to be for life. It's a very risky proposition. But what can we do? We can prepare best we can. And one of the things that I advocate for that people didn't do in previous generations is very long engagements. And by very long, I mean at least a year. No less than 12 months living together, sharing everything: sex, your bills, your children, your if you have to make a blended family, if you have children, your business plans, your business, your schedule, your vacations. No less than 12 months with your potential partner, engaged, living life, to see if this can possibly work. It's just like your employer does when they hire you on probation. When you get hired at any job, there's always a probationary period, whether it's a long one or a short one, whether they tell you or not. There's always a probationary period. There's always an ability for your employer to let you go without consequence, without heads up. And that's called a probationary period. But the probationary period is there for them to evaluate you in action, because your resume might be great. Your interview might be great. You could talk a good game, blah, 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 blah. None of that really matters if you get to the job and you can't do your thing. So they have created the probationary period. That's what a fiance period is also supposed to be. In my book, that's what I liken it to. Your fiance period is the same as the probationary period in a new employment situation. So before you get to fiance, you're out there, you're dating, you're doing interviews, you're meeting people, you find out who is a good candidate, who has the skills you need. I say all of us are our own CEOs, all right? And you're looking for another CEO caliber person to be in your business. Your business is your life. So you're a CEO and you're looking for a vice president to add. But if you're looking for a vice president, they have to be CEO level, right? They have to be as competent, if not more competent than you in your business. Mm-hmm. So when you get that, then you put them through the probationary period. You say, all right, I hire you on. Let's see what you do. That's when you live together. That's the fiance period. If you have a very successful fiance period, if you do the right things and get to know that person as intimately and deeply as you possibly can, it will give you a chance to make a good decision when that year or 2 years comes and says, you know what, I think you're the right one for me. And if you agree, let's jump the broom. That one step to me will make astronomical differences in the marriages in the United States of America or in the West. Astronomical differences. Matter of fact, in the world, if more people did that, we would have less divorces. Because I promise you that the people who've been getting divorced after 6 months or a year or 5 years, the average divorce happens in the first 7 years. Those people would have figured out what it took them 7 years to figure out in the first year if they were honest and lived together for a year. I'm sure they would recognize it. But what do society now? We don't do that. We don't have a long engagement period. We think about fantasies. We let our family sell us on daggone these princesses and princes coming to sweep you up on a white horse, or that God's going to make it all work. Allah's going to make it all work. And then boom, you jump the broom. And now all of a sudden you're finding all these problems. Why do we do it? That's so backwards. No company does that. And so what I keep coming back to the business aspect is like, I need to tell people we have something that works, a business. Let's try to use that in romance, because romance is not working for us. And no company would hire you and just give you carte blanche to the company without checking you out for months to years. And so we shouldn't do it either. We shouldn't be dating, and we dang sure shouldn't be engaged to someone, and we haven't checked out everything. Now, it's going to be difficult. Some people are going to say, well, you can't have sex with everyone. Untrue. You can always have safe sex, and you should only always have safe sex. Safe sex is the only kind of sex you should have. And if it's safe, then you can have that with the person. Again, your religion and your old-fashioned philosophies are lying to you. Now, they didn't have the ability to have safe sex years ago, but we have the ability today. No excuses. You should only ever have safe sex. So if you're having safe sex with a person on the first date or on the 100th date, it should still be the same exact type of safe sex.
Yeah. Let me give a brief pause for a second, because we have a lot of people in the chat room acknowledge. And as you know, I have like a whole lot of people watching, and the likes could be a little bit higher. As y'all know, likes are free, so don't be so hesitant. As you come in and you buy the view, hit the like button. Likes are always free, people. Please, let's see how the algorithm will be friendly with this conversation. Let me go up in the chat room. We're gonna start from top bottom. As you know, I see Mahogany Roots MJ in the building. How you doing? Going down the list. Chat room. Next one. Yes. As you know, I see Positive. I see the first lady, Renee Abrigo. They said it goes those who can do, those who can't teach. Yes. Go down.
That's my sister. That's my sister. She's trying to be funny.
Next one is Lennox. I think I pronounced it right. Lennox Abrigo. This program is valuable to marriage couples. I enjoy it. Dr. Blaque is a gifted speaker. His ideals are important. In addition to that, he makes them clearly and in a well-reasoned way. Yes, indeed.
That's my pops. Thank you, pops.
Yes. Oh yeah, we have the family bill. Yes. Oh yes, we have the Abrigos in the house. Yes. Next, to vet you, you just don't want to sleep with anyone. Yes.
I agree, and I think I touched on that.
Yes. True. I was tricked for 9 days before. So you have a point. Yeah, I mean, you see, I'm gonna keep going up. You continue talking. Let me say this. I said earlier, I'm not too much fond of waiting too long, especially if we're not virgins into the door from the start. I mean, I'm not saying there's people that's still not virgins out here. I mean, as you know, Paco, they said there's a lot more males virgins than women, and obviously because let's be honest, men have to do things just to possibly get the possibility of sex. Women, you just have to maybe show up, and some dude is going to always offer the phallus. But anyway, let's keep going. Is monogamy a deal breaker in a relationship for all women but not all men? It's a good question. I don't know if you want to answer that.
Listen, nobody can decide a deal breaker for anybody else. Deal breakers are, and so another part of my book is personal responsibility. My TikTok page. That's another sister of mine. Thank you, Marcy, for the question. The TikTok page, my number one hashtag is personal responsibility. So I've been talking a lot about, relationships and concepts, but this is something that has to be acknowledged. This is the most important foundational piece to having a successful relationship, and that's personal responsibility. People are so focused on others. And it makes a little bit of sense because you're trying to get into a relationship. But think about it again from a business perspective. If you're trying to get hired at a company to be the lead engineer, you don't go there and try to be an engineer. The preparation to be a lead engineer is extensive. The first thing you had to do was be good in your basic studies, high school, middle school, high school. Then you had to be good in your next level of studies, your undergrad, college, and then you have to be good at your graduate level. And then you go to the company and qualify to be the lead engineer. If you're not good at the graduate level, they're not going to hire you over another engineer who has graduate level education, because you have to prove yourself step by step. You have to meet the standards, and that's your choice. You don't get to just be the lead engineer, but you can choose to be the lead engineer and go through the process of climbing the ladder. The exact same type of responsibility exists in romance. You are not just, and unfortunately people do it this way, but you should not just be married and be like, all right, boom, marriage, there you go. Hey, you're cute, let's get married and we'll figure it out from there. You can do it. And many people have tried and none have succeeded. Mm-hmm. I know too many people who are divorced because they met someone who they thought was cute. They knew him for a couple of weeks or a few months. They married them, and they're also currently divorced, because that's not how we do anything else. Remember, marriage is the most extensive long-term guarantee that we're trying to make in our life, and it's extremely risky, low success rate thing, because you don't even know how long you're going to live. You're telling a person till a death do us part, and you don't even know how long you're going to live. So there's so few things that you know the further the time goes. So with that, we have to be more scrutinizing about getting into something that risky. And the best thing, the most important thing you could learn, the most important thing that you can do, the thing that you can control is yourself. So you have to put work and effort into the kind of person that you are in order to give that person to someone else, because you don't know what that person is going to give, but you know what you're going to give. You can know what you're going to give. You're going to find out what the other person gives, but you know what you're going to give. You know what you could do. You know your limits. It's a personal responsibility, the responsibility of self. Mm-hmm. If you have a bad temperament, you know that before you get into a relationship, and you know you need to work on it before you get into a relationship. If you have bad hygiene, you very well know that because people in your life have told you. If you don't deal well with children, if you don't have a good job, all of these things are things that you fix before you get married. Too many people, instead of fixing those things, hide those things, get into the marriage, trick their way into the marriage, and then they get divorced. Because the one thing that's changed more than anything, I got to say this, the one thing that's changed more than anything that make the divorce rate skyrocket is women's rights. That's why I'm the black male feminist, because giving women a choice is what allows us to have more separation. When you give any group more power, they will execute or exercise that power. The only reason that our grandparents' generation didn't have divorce is because they weren't allowed. The moment that our parents got the power to get divorced and we have the power to get divorced, it's 50% just like that overnight. If you go to a Muslim, and my Muslim brothers and sisters who are listening in, who talk about, oh, well, look at our country. They said this to me when I was in Saudi Arabia. Look at our country. We don't get divorces like y'all do in the West. Bull crap. You do. You would actually, but you don't give the women a choice to get divorced. They have to stay in the marriage once they get into it. Give them a choice and see what happens. And they're learning that. If you realize 3-4 years ago, the Crown Prince gave women the right to drive. And what does that mean? Clearly, more women are driving today, right? They didn't have the choice before. They weren't allowed to drive before, so almost no women drove before. Now women are legally allowed to drive. Guess what? Women are driving. Human beings, when you give them the opportunity to exercise a choice, they will exercise that choice, even if it's to their detriment. Mm-hmm. And these theological, religious entities that were forcing women to out of the choice, out of their choices, and are now giving women's rights, are exposing the initial flaw that it's not God. God is not going to make anything happen, that human beings are going to make the decisions that they make for better or for worse. And so ladies out there, why I'm a feminist? Because I'm all about women's rights. And I need us all to understand that it's about gender equality. If we as men today understand that women have more rights than our grandmother had, we'll stop talking about what our grandmother did in a relationship. Let me say that again. If we as men getting into relationships understand that women today have more power than our grandmothers had, we will never again bring up the point about the kind of relationship our grandmother had. Because you don't know what your grandmother would have done if she had the power to divorce your granddad. While you up there talking about, well, I saw my grandma bring my granddad a plate and my granddad didn't have to get up and make his own plate and he just went to work and came home. All that sounds good. And hell, that shit is true. That is true. That's what happened. What you're leaving out is your girl that you meet in the street today ain't like that, and she doesn't have to be like that, and you have to date a different person. You're not dating your grandma. You're not dating a person from your grandma's generation with your grandma's mentality. You're also leaving out that the girl you meet today, even if she's working at McDonald's, is making 10 times more than your grandmother ever made in her life. While you downing a girl at McDonald's, would you also down your grandma? Because she ain't make no money. My wife likes to bring up this point. She says, for all these guys who are asking for submissive women and referencing their grandparents, they forget that granddad paid for everything. Granddad paid for the lights, the food, the clothes. He gave grandma a stipend. She used to have to get a new dress every Christmas, every Easter. He used to take her to get her nails done or make sure she get there. He used to buy her new pots and pans and appliances. Grandpa foot the bill all the way. Grandpa paid the cost to be the boss. And grandma was accepting of her role because he accepted his role. Today, you men out here are talking about my woman got to listen to me and do what I say, but she got to pay half. Wrong. You want a relationship like granddad had? You got to pay for everything. That's just the start.
That means 100%.
The hard part is going to find a woman.
Can I say something? I know what's
of course.
Pause. And it said, so you're saying like what these like the person that is no longer here talking about say you got to pay 100% everything, and other so-called content creators that said this, and a lot of dudes get in their feelings. Is it say that what your grandfather had during that time when it was a necessity and the laws were not only in favor, but the economy was different, that paying the cost to be the boss was a little bit more easy if you got like that. But now, because it's not like that, when make their money, and depending on what you are financially as a man, that now you're now have an issue with paying 100% of everything. Is it true, Dr. Blaque? Is it really true? No, you muted. Yeah, man. Pay for everything. Ooh. As Dr. Blaque get his mic in order, let me acknowledge the chat room a little bit. Let's see who else. Please, thank you. Please, let everybody know. Hit the like button. Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm still here.
Yeah, I don't know if you were muted, so that's why.
I was talking too. So what I'm saying is, it's not more difficult to make money today. It's a lot easier to make money today. Granddad had a $60,000 house and he was making $20,000 a year. That's the same kind of situation we have now. You could make $150,000 a year and buy you a $400,000, $500,000 house. Hell, there are people out here who are making less than $100,000 with 400 houses. So it's the same kind of reference point. It's the same kind of ratio is the word I'm looking for. Excuse me. Granddad, most of our grandparents weren't millionaires. They were blue collar like most of us. And the point is that did granddad spend all his money on his family? Yes. He didn't have grandma help him. Some content creators, some men in the manosphere point this out. But too many people that because they're saying that granddad like a king, but it's not about if he was treated like a king, it's about what did he pay to be treated like a king. And the point is, if you as a man today want to be treated like a king and you don't even start, you have to start with paying for everything. That's the first step in being treated like a king. You as a man got to foot the bill. Granddad wasn't put on child support because he was paying for all his kids on the other side of town and with your grandma. You over here crying about your one little child support payment that you don't make on time. Not having it. Get out of here. Sit down. Get your money up. For all the men out there whining about child support, you disqualify yourself to be an alpha male. Disqualify yourself to be to have a submissive woman. You got to write your check. Write your check before you talk. Because wealthy men know this inherently. When wealthy men are talking, they talking about how they got their wife this, that, and the third because they got her in check because they got the money for that. None of these wealthy men. Why did Mark Zuckerberg get married if he got all the money in the world? A lot of people who are like, what's the point of getting married? That's part of our discussion, right? Why did Mark Zuckerberg get married? Why did Kanye get married? Why did Bill Gates get married? Why did what's my man who owns Amazon?
Steve Bezos.
Why did Bezos get married and then get divorced and get remarried? All these wealthy men, 80% of wealthy people are married. Why? If they have all the money that they have and they can pay the cost to be the boss, why are they married? It's obvious that marriage is not about how much money you have, and it's not about dictating to your wife with your money. Clearly, the companionship is the most important thing. The point is, can you go through the steps to find the right kind of companion? That's the point. Whether you have a little bit of money or a lot of money, are you going to be personally responsible to be the kind of person worth marrying and to wait until you find the kind of person that is worth marrying to you? The issue in our society is that we don't want to do the hard work. We are so concerned with the what do we call it? You always say this, the microwave generation, the instant gratification.
Yeah.
Well, if you do a microwave marriage, you're going to have a microwave divorce. Easy come, easy go. Good luck. I'm not advocating for that. I don't support it, but good luck. That's what you're going to get.
Can I give a pushback? Well, some gentlemen or fellas will say, well, not every billionaire is married. They say Elon Musk is not married, last time I checked. Or any up and coming.
Correct. I said 80%. I didn't say all.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, okay, Elon Musk is not married yet, and he has kids already. But we're not going to say in the long run, in the next couple of years, he won't, personally. Now, mind you, if you're a man that guy like that, yes, women are going to give you babies, and you're going to eventually either pay child support or whatever. And I remember Mary Brown said the best, that child support in the last century going on into the 21st century, you're getting off easy.
Facts.
And I had to agree with him because, and think about it, Paco, the states, even the president and other states had to step in because the government does not want to pay for unwanted children, and they never wanted to do it anyway. They've been harping on it, been pushing on this for the last since the end of the early 30s. They say it's been going on a little longer about how men used to got married, walked out their wife and children, and then start a new life. Other groups of men, especially non-Black men, if we want to go there, they have always stepped in to regulate behaviors of derelict men. I'm not sure why brothers don't see this and think it's just a Black. No, this is just men in general. Men know the consequence if you are going to be having children out here, that you better supply something to take care of some of them or all of them. So when child support was really started to be facilitated back in the 30s, and then eventually was, fully enforced, but it was like brought again back in the 80s, but fully enforced during the 90s, was a testament to let say that you will sit here, sling cock, shoot up the club, and everything that's go right, you move on to next, and you don't want to pay nothing of the girlfriend or wherever she is and the baby, and just start a new life. And they know that this costs too much money, and the state is not going to fit the bill no longer. So that's when Bill Clinton enforced it. And remember, we were boys back then. If we go back in history, knew about this now as adults. And then say, if you notice, when the other man had to step in to hold responsibility to these men, what these men started doing, bro, they now want custody. And I want to say, why you want to fight for custody? Just throw money at her and keep moving. Oh, because they don't want to pay.
And that's pathetic, bro. Back to my point about granddad, you got to pay the cost to be the boss. If you want to produce children that cost society, it doesn't just cost the parents, it costs society. That's why your taxes goes to roads and bridges and schools. Mm-hmm. If you own a home, you have to pay for the neighborhood school, whether you have children or not. Mm-hmm. If you want to produce children that cost society, what argument do you have to not pay for those children? I always say, if you're paying child support, you're only doing a third of what the child needs. And each of us are humans. Each of us are humans. We all know that children need more than money. We all have watched some of the TV shows and movies that addressed this point decades ago. What was that movie with the guy who had the 7 children move into his mansion in like Europe or whatever, and they were singing on the stairs? I'm sorry, my family would know the movie, but
wait, let's do it better. If any people, I see y'all in the chat room, can y'all post in the chat room the name of the movie what Paco is speaking of?
Yes, it's a very famous movie from the 50s. It's color, so it's like 50s or 60s. But they're all on the stairs, and he ran the family like a business, like a military unit. And but I'm
One
pretty
person
sure.
wrote, wait. Let's see if we see this in the chat room. Is it Rags?
I'm sorry. Not rags to riches. It's a white family, and they're in Europe. They're in a big old mansion, and they used to like blow a whistle, and they'd all line up on the stairs or line up in a height line. And he was wealthy, and I think the mother had all the children. I think the father had passed away, and so he ended up marrying them, and he learned to not be so rigid with them. But that reference to my point is that it costs money to take care of a child. And that movie, when he was learning to not be so rigid because, hey, I'm paying the bills, y'all living in my house, he learned to also contribute emotionally, to be supportive of the children, to contribute his knowledge. And
they says the one person wrote, and I think Paz Vice said best.
That's it.
Sound of Music.
That's it. That's it. Very famous movie. I knew she would know. That's my sister, Marcy. Thank you. Sound of Music. The lesson from Sound of Music was, it's not enough to just pay money for a human being. Human beings need more than food and shelter if you're trying to raise them to be productive parts of society. So for every man whining and crying like a little boy about paying for child support of a child that you forced into the world, you got the woman pregnant and you helped her to produce the child. If you pay child support, you're doing a third, and that's if you pay all of the child's expenses, you're doing a third of what the child needs to survive. The child still needs emotional support, knowledge, and care. It needs care. Just paying money does nothing for care. You didn't child by paying the money. If you have a child and you send your child off to boarding school, you're not caring for that child, but you're paying for boarding school. And I'm saying this as a single parent who was a baby daddy. I didn't marry my first daughter's mother. I didn't marry her. And my daughter and I have a great relationship. I hope she's listening. I hope she watches my TikToks, because a lot of what I'm talking about is to try to guide her as a young woman in this generation into a healthy, successful marriage when she's ready. One of my first rules for my daughter is she can't get married until she's 30, because back to the point of personal responsibility, you don't know yourself well enough in your 20s to make a promise about what you're going to do for the rest of your life to anyone. Okay. So if marriage is for life and you're guaranteeing a certain level of quality, the kind of person you're going to be to your spouse, it makes no sense to do that in your 20s when you don't know who you're going to be or what you're going to be in your 20s. In your 20s is when you get established, the beginning of your journey, learning a skill, paying, getting a job, finishing university, so on and so forth. When you're 30 is when you start to be established, when you start to commit to your profession. You're not going to be bouncing around. You already decided what your degree is, and now you're sticking to that degree field, or you chose, hey, I got a degree in this, but I'm going to do that. That's when you can start saying, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to be. I'm going to stick to this career, and I'm going to probably be in it for the next 20 or 30 years. That's the time that you make a marriage proposal or accept a marriage proposal, because you've personally accepted the responsibility to be in this field. Business, again, another business principle. You're 30 years old. You settled in your job, you're settled in your career, you're going to keep doing it. You're not bouncing around anymore. You're not picking and choosing. So I told my daughter, the first rule about getting married, you can't get married until you're 30. And that's for all people. That's my number one, or the top of my recommendations. Don't get married until you're 30, because you don't know who you're going to be until you're in your 30s. You might be 31, you might be 38. I didn't get married until I was 38, but you can't assure anybody anything in your 20s, because you don't know anything enough to be your assurances are literally useless. Now, there are lots of people who've been married in their 20s, and most of them are divorced, and some of them are successfully still married because their partner was able to roll with those changes and adjust with those changes. But in today's day and age, where women have rights and they don't around and let you torture them or fail them or anything, then you are taking a high risk telling your wife, I'm going to be a doctor and I'm going to, work my way up and be the head surgeon. And then halfway through med school, you decide that you want to be an Amazon truck driver. You married her prior to that decision, and it's not her fault. She's not wrong for divorcing you because you in your promises. Now, some people may think that harsh, but I say instead of worrying about if it's harsh or not, just don't make that mistake. Don't promise something that you're not sure of and that you're unlikely to stay sure of. You're not sure you're going to be a doctor. That's why you're still in school. How about you become a doctor and you're in the surgical ward, and then find a wife and say, hey, I'm doing this and I'm committed to doing this for many years to come. And I will take you on as a partner, as my one and only woman to build a family with, because I already have this foundational part. I already have the income part. I know that I can afford a certain kind of family, and I'd like to share that with you. Why don't we do it that way? Doesn't that sound like something that has a better chance of success?
Yes. The only thing, well, I can't really push back right now because at times when they go back to my own view and opinion about how people decide to move across life, especially waiting longer rather than one. But like I said, if you're still in this journey and you're not certain, and if the decision is you want to get married, and as we seek it, depending on what age you are, especially if you're a young adult, you always got to know the cost benefit analysis. And no one's saying that it takes not only
Cost benefit analysis, brother. Talk now, preach.
Yeah, the cost benefit analysis, and you have to be in the right state of mindset. And as you know, in this society, they always say that the our brains don't develop until the mid part of our life. I would say a little bit more when we're looking at us as people, it should be a little later, but because the society we in and how we're a culture is artificial. And I say it's personal because Paco, you're from the island. And we gotta understand this: how people develop outside the third world countries different from the first world nations. See, you had to be an adult and know basic skills and be repetitive and apply it. Here in the West, we're more artificial, where everything's ready made. And the beautiful thing about living outside America and being around bushes or any part of environment, it has to you had to be conditioned to know saying you had to not only survive but be in the stage of manhood and womanhood. What I mean, case in point, and people forgot there was always rites of passage. Now, certain parts of the world they still practice, and it's good, but people don't understand why was it instilled, because you're going to be in a journey to become future husbands, wives, and adults. So these basic skills are necessary so your development as you grow in your journey, you know what to do. Everything's laid out already. So once you get to that point, from what they do the research about when the brain develops, we are more advanced than we have to give ourselves credit as people. But because we are taken away from that, we had to operate in an environment that's artificial to us. So we had to not only adapt, but we had to create something and do something new for our preservation in an uncertain environment we're in. So remember, people, when Frances Cress was said the 30 and 35 range mix, she's conflict, but usually around the 30s is the sweet spot. Is because it's going to take us a little bit more, because remember, and I want people to hear me well, and this is not racist, I'm being general. Black people in America, or anywhere, we supposed to operate and think and move like non-black people, and we don't. And because it caused schisms. So for everybody else that is supposed to get to a certain way, it takes more time for us because we're not them people. We don't get that luxury and benefit here. So we had to create some, and I think it's going to come to the point that we had to create some that's genuinely our own for our own preservation in an artificial world. So like I said, it's going to take more time, but I'm not against anybody that's in their mid-20s or something. They decide to jump that broom early. Like I said before, I'm not going to demonize it, but I tell people many times, when you go that route, you got to always understand know what you're getting into, and know saying there's not going to be a well support system in your decision you make. So whatever decision you make as a man or woman at that age, you better be comfortable of the outcomes, and use it as a learning lesson. If if it does fall out. But like the purpose here of this stream is, we're trying to emphasize more about the consequence of divorce. I'm reinforcing this because this is an important thing, because I've been hearing too many times throughout the internet about the negativity. I'm not a person to push negativity, tell them what you should not be doing and tell you why and keep pushing, because it doesn't suit you well. If you're going to operate in the West, you better understand the business aspect, which they refuse to teach most people in the West. And there's good reason, because in a capitalist, what sense it makes I teach you business concept or anything like this? I'm not a business person, but I understand the point is you have to understand enough or get just the feel of how it operates. Because if you don't do that, you're going to get fucked every time out here. And then waiting for somebody to screw them. And Parker, I'm sure you've been screwed in business, but there's always a shark or there's always a prey and someone willing to get at you and a given notice anytime. Because it's sweet to know saying, look, fresh meat. So I want you to understand that. So move forward.
Hold on, before you move forward.
Okay.
People need to understand the reason why we don't teach finances in a capitalist society, because one could argue that it makes the most sense to teach the foundational things that is the focus of your society. So finances would be foundational in a capitalist society, but we don't teach it because every government system needs workers. And so it's oddly, every government system needs workers. And oddly enough, in a capitalistic society, it's shaped like a pyramid. Like every other government system is shaped like a pyramid. Everyone can't be on top. You need people on the bottom. And in order to keep people on the bottom, you keep knowledge away from them, like in every other government. And so you want to have a lot of people who are healthy and able to work, but they're not aspiring to be more than they are. They're happy to take regular minimum wage jobs. Obviously, there are more minimum wage jobs than any other kind of job. So if you started teaching people how to get away from minimum wage jobs, you're going to defeat the purpose, the structure of your pyramid shaped system. And so every government, capitalist, communist, fascist, I mean, that's not really relative, but even prior to today, back when we had the feudal system, there were serfs, and beneath the serfs, there were slaves. And up until 150 years ago, every single government in the world, in every country, had slaves as part of their economy. Because we don't talk about enough. And a lot of African Americans like to say, well, hey, we're slaves, we were slaves. That's true. And then white supremacists usually will say, well, there were slaves in other countries and we're missing each other, because it's true that there were slaves in other countries, but the Atlantic slave trade was unique. But Atlantic slave trade helped to lead us to the point where the world realized that we don't have to enslave other humans. We don't need slavery as the bottom of the pyramid. Now, what do we use? Indentured servants. And more importantly, we use, in many, many countries, we use illegal immigrants. So where they're not slaves, but they're getting paid slaves' wages. Every large company, because this is a big thing in politics right now, the immigration system, every larger country, every larger GDP, every country with more money has people from their neighboring countries with less money coming into them. So everyone's like, oh, America, we get all these Mexicans. That's true. We do get Mexican immigrants and immigrants from South America and from Central America. But guess what? China gets immigrants from all around their region because they're the biggest GDP. And Japan gets immigrants because they're another large GDP. And India gets immigrants from Pakistan and Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. Why? Because they're the bigger GDP. Every larger GDP has immigrants coming in to try to work into their system because it's more cost effective than staying in their poor country. Our African brothers and sisters are dying every year trying to cross the Mediterranean, trying to cross the Sahara Desert to get to where? Europe. Why? Because the European economies have a larger GDP than the countries that they're coming from. So we're all in the same concept, a pyramid. The richest at the top, the poorest at the bottom. And below the poorest are illegal immigrants who are working damn near slave. They replace the slaves. And that's the way society works today. We, as those of us who live in the United States of America and most of the West, have an opportunity to work our way up the pyramid. most of us will never ever make it to the top, but many of us can get to a higher level than we were born, and that matters. Back to the romance part. If we are committed, we take the personal responsibility to have a career in our 20s and secure that career by our 30s, then we bring in a partner who's also done the same thing. We have a chance to have a successful, lasting relationship because we've at least addressed the consistency of our economic situation. What I mean is, I've committed and proven that I'm an engineer. My wife's committed and proven that a doctor, and now we too know that we can earn this type of income consistently in our 30s. We could also have a certain kind of family based on that income, and then we have less stress of the unknown. And money is still the number one thing, or the top two things that cause divorce in this country. It's infidelity, always, and it will always be that. How can we adjust that? How can we fix that? How can we address that concern? We can take personal responsibility and fix ourselves. We can be a professional person before we seek a spouse. Because then when we make a promise about what we're going to do, we have a chance of actually achieving that promise, or a much better chance than if we're 22 years old and we're getting married because we think that guy's really cute.
Okay. Excellent. Oh, as he knew himself. Make sure you guys like the stream. Likes are free, and I would appreciate it if y'all donate to the channel. As you know, I'm still pushing. Normally I don't do these special broadcasts, but today has to be said and look at and announce as a whole. So you feel inclined, please support and donate to the Chaos Marine channel. I would like that, and there are many ways you could support it. That will be helpful. I think it will go further if you share this and like the stream. Like I said, these conversations personally is not fun to us because, as you know, the message right now push is marriage is a bad deal. It's not an investment. Is all that. Okay. So what is the alternate plan since you're not getting married? General. The opposite of not marriage is you're going to create baby mamas.
Facts.
Listen, I got to be honest. If you're not marrying, you're going to be shooting up the club. You're going to create. Let's be honest. I'd rather we as men. And then, Paco, we got to talk about easy now because we are over an hour into the stream. I'd rather be honest and be upfront honest with the ladies. And I'm no proponent. I had to speak the same way too. If I got to tell y'all this, that I'd rather we say, baby, I just want to F, no strings attached, and depending after that, we could see where this goes, possibly, I'd rather we go now with this approach now, since they said sex is easy and accessible. Hell, I know some females will send links and send that they want me to pay the OnlyFans or something just to watch them exploit themselves for $4.99 a month and change. So sex is out here, and me, I'm not really a proponent of telling men, especially of any age, especially young black men, to be paying for coochie. I know one particular person, Paco, and we're gonna probably talk about the people that like to travel out and look for wives, if that's the case. That this young brother is paying for the coochie, and I say if you're under the age of 20, or under the age of 25, or under age 30, and you're paying for some outside America, you need to get your life in order, your priorities straight. That tells me you're not being upfront honest. And the second best thing is you rather say, I'm just going to go find somebody that will give it to me and I have to pay for box. And we all know if you're paying for box, it has no value, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but if you woman, you're selling it, it's useless. Because now that means there's nothing really sacred. I mean, it's at least something that's going into it. But now you're increasing the body count and you're making your box worthless than it already is. And in America, you get some tail for not $40. You get for like maybe 100 or something, because that's the price up here in the US. Outside America, you're gonna probably pay even double that because your dollar goes further, but that's another story. So anyway, moving forward, easy. Kanye West. Dr. Blaque. What I've noticed, not only I hear, but there are videos out here that every time Kanye has a conversation with other men in regards to his frustrations, he always goes and refers to his wife that divorced him. My question, and we might have to go psychologically, real deeper issues, because Kanye West, or Yeezy, what he calls himself, is a Gemini, and he is a single child himself. He's the only child. That is his regular development really the cause of him not really learning his actions as a man, even when it comes to women? Is my question. If it's not clear, I'll rephrase it, but go ahead.
Well, I think that the problem with Kanye West and people like him is a lack of personal responsibility. I know it might be redundant, but if you think about Kanye, and I'm not so much into entertainment, so some of the details I might be a little shaky on, but from what I've seen of his career, after his mother passed, she was kind of keeping him in line, keeping him from doing whatever crazy things that came to his mind, helping him to focus on his career and being the best musician he can be. And he was there, right? He's a great musician. He's a great musical artist. And after she passed away, something broke in him, and it wasn't for the better. It was more like a barrier that helped him from being his worst. And so now that he's unchained and able to be his worst, we can see the consequences of that he's always been risk of making terrible decisions. He no longer has someone that he can trust to keep him in line. And he does and says anything that comes to his mind, whatever he feels like. And this is what's going to happen when you're that kind of person. When you're unchained, when you're uncouth, when you're uncivilized, when you're uneducated, when you don't have a commitment to making good life choices, you are Kanye West. And worse yet, if you have a lot of money. So Kanye succeeds because of some of that wildness. It makes him a very creative person, and he sells a product that a lot of people want. But on the flip side, he's out of control. And so that wildness turns into a detriment. And he literally lost $100 million overnight. He went from being on a billionaires list and right off the billionaires list. All for what? For words. There are people out there who have committed heinous acts, evil deeds, hurt people physically, and they haven't lost a penny. I mean, we could look at Vladimir Putin. He's still a multi-billionaire, and he's trying to literally take another country. But Kanye, being unhinged and not tethered to reality and understanding his position in the world, threw away $400 million, more than everyone who's listening to this and everyone that they know and everyone who knows them combined. $400 million overnight for what? Because he had to voice his opinion about his negative thoughts towards the Jewish community. I don't condone it, but I really don't condone throwing away $400 million. And Kanye could have voiced his opinion, his negative feelings towards the Jewish community in such a smart way. He could have went to his counselor. He could have went to someone who is a confidant. He didn't have to make it public, but he had to make it public. He's committed to being unhinged. He's committed to being a loose cannon. He's committed to making bad decisions as an adult. And so that means he's committed to losing money and losing everything. And let's just hope that no one commits any serious acts of violence against him, because when you're an extremist, extremists also you. Everyone's a tough guy until they got to square up with a tough guy. So let's hope that none of the people in the Jewish community want to take acts of violence against Kanye. But he has been headed down this road, and we saw it play out in his marriage. He wisely married a person who wanted a family who is known for being just entertainment, who have no skills, who contribute nothing to society other than acting like buffoons. And they ingratiated him and wanted to make a family with him. Of all people, Kim Kardashian wanted to marry Kanye, and she made a family. And from what I can tell, she's a great mother, and she lived up to her end of the bargain. This fool, he can't be bothered consistently being tethered to reality, with consistently being a good person. He's not a good person for himself. He couldn't be a good person for his children, his wife, and now he's not even a good sponsor. He's not even a good representative of the one thing that he does well, which is make music. And that is a example that we can all take and see, listen, you have the power to do whatever you want. If you choose a life of destruction and mayhem, you're going to get those consequences. And your spouse shouldn't have to stay with you forever because they married you and you decided, F it, I don't want to be a decent person. Kanye isn't just like a bad guy. He's a whole out of his mind daggone person. He doesn't want to be in reality. And think about all the people out there who don't have nowhere close to his money who are similar. I feel sorry for ladies out there because they've been telling us for years. There are lots of other men like Kanye in the world, and we got to date them. And we don't want to date anymore because we got to run into people like this. And you and I both know men in our lives, our friends or associates who are just like, yeah, F it, the world. Hey, I don't give a damn and do what I want to do. Those are the same men whining about having to be held to account to pay child support. Yeah. Talking about how they got money, talking about how they do their thing, buying Yeezys of all things, $300, $400 pairs of shoes, but can't be bothered to pay $100 a week to their children that they created, mind you.
Damn, that shoes that expensive?
Heck God. Yeah, he didn't become a billionaire for making daggone Kmart shoes. He ain't Shaq. Shaq's not a billionaire. Kanye is a billionaire. Yes, them damn Yeezys are $400, $500, $800, $1,000. Yes, absolutely.
Oh my God!
Yes, brother. Them ugly shoes. Them joints is ugly as heck.
They're more expensive than a pair of Nikes.
They're twice as expensive as Jordans. Kanye literally brought Adidas back. Adidas is the master of soccer cleats. Soccer, we call it football in the rest of the world, but soccer is the biggest sport in the world. The only reason Adidas still exists is because they sell the best, or they've got people convinced that they sell the best soccer cleats. But they weren't relevant. They weren't relevant. They were always carrying water for Nike. They signed up with Yeezy and got exactly what they wanted. They wanted a supremely high visibility person to produce a very unique looking item. They got that. They sell them things for $400 a pair, $200 a foot. And I don't mean feet. I mean a foot, like your foot. And up. You can, if you're a sneakerhead, you can go into groups and buy them for twice, triple that. They are twice as expensive as a pair of Jordans. Absolutely. Who is the number one seller of apparel as an individual company? Or sports shoes, I should say. Sorry. And Kanye threw all that away for what? To voice anti-Semitism? How is saying your opinion about anti-Semitism worth it? How is that worth $400 million? How could it be? You can just feel how you feel. Do you have to say it? Do you have to insult the people who are supporting you? Whether he knows it or not, those people who bought Yeezys, they won't buy them anymore. Probably not. But that's a powerful group. That's a powerful minority. What did you benefit in attacking them publicly? What did you benefit in talking bad about your ex-wife and her new boyfriend who only left you because you're a psycho? I mean, we can't look at Kanye like a normal, intelligent person. We all have to accept that Kanye's out of his rabbit mind. And I was insulted when my hero, President Obama, called him a jackass when he went on stage and told everybody that Taylor Swift album was all right, but Beyonce had a better album. Those are true words. But come on, bro. How long has Kanye been warning us that he's out of it? You don't go on stage at an award ceremony after a person gets an award and criticize it to their face and to it's over. They're saying that changed nothing. Taylor Swift still got the award, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
So what did he benefit by that? So we knew what Kanye was. Adidas knew what Kanye was. And in their defense, they made a great gamble. They made a lot of money off of him. And now it's over. Now they got to find somebody else. And good luck, because they weren't good at finding somebody before. And ain't too many fools out there ready to go for number two. Nike got all the best endorsements for a reason. I feel bad for Adidas, but hey, what you gonna do? I would have dropped Kanye. I would have never signed Kanye personally, so I would have never had the billions he brought in because I know what kind of person I can't work. I'm a businessman. I've read a lot of business books. Thankfully, my business is growing very well this year. I'm looking forward to doing over $1 million this year, hopefully. But the book that I read and the concepts that I aspire to, I don't deal with people who don't have basic, fundamental grasp of reality and themselves. You might be an awesome entertainer. You might be a great basketball player, football player. Heck, you might have money. You're not going to be in my inner circle if I can't trust you to do the basics. And I've been saying this on my page, and I'm saying this to all the ladies out there in the dating game. Remember, the Black has told you this. Remember, Dr. Blaque told you this. Find someone with a grasp of the basics. Nothing that they do on the extreme, nothing that they do well that is flashy or out of this world matters if they can't do the basics. A lot of geniuses have this problem. They're great at being a genius. They're great at astrology and astronomy and sorry, only astronomy, at cosmology or biology or mathematics or music in Kanye's part, but they're terrible. They're not good with social skills. Look at Mark Zuckerberg. Genius, created Facebook, took that idea. It wasn't his original idea, but he made it into the biggest corporation overnight. Just like that, boom, social. But look at how he is. He struggles to communicate to people why he has to sell their private information, even though he says he doesn't. As if there's a good answer to that. There is no answer to that. Zuckerberg, you cannot do something that you said you weren't going to do. Point blank, period, end of story. And let us know so we won't buy your product that you're going to be a liar. And he looks like it's a little robot getting on TV because he keeps getting in trouble, keeps getting called to Congress. Zuckerberg, why are you lying? Why are you lying? Why are you lying? Well, it's not really lying if I told my shareholders. Yes, it's still lying. But geniuses have a problem with the basics. And you have to decide if you're dating, do you want to take that risk? The problem is a lot of women who complain, right? You and I are in this space and we listen to some of these complaints from the ladies. Right. A lot of them are complaining about their guy. And what I hear when they're making these complaints is they didn't vet them, that they wanted all the good and somehow are going to avoid the bad. It's not possible. The universe is balanced.
It's not logic.
It's not logical. It's not possible. The universe is balanced. The greater a person is at one thing, the worse they're going to be at something else. And women accept that within themselves. We all accept that within ourselves. We all accept our own personal flaws. Relationships is learning how to accept another person's flaws, your partner's flaws. And a lot of people on social media are complaining, bitterly crying about the flaws of their previous partners in the relationship. And I feel that it would be beneficial if they could contextualize those flaws. What is a deal breaker and what can I accept? Because so many people tell you quickly what their deal breakers are, and they have a very hard time of telling you what they accept. If you don't have anything that you accept, you need to be single. Stop wasting everyone's time, because we all have to accept something. There isn't a perfect person in the world. I didn't sell my wife on my perfection because I don't have any to sell her. And I'm not expecting her perfection because I know she doesn't have any to sell me. But listen to some of these characters. Social media is so prevalent. It's everywhere. Everyone talking about everything. TikTok, they got 1,000,001 videos about relationships. Listen to the people talk and see if you can hear anyone talk about what flaws they accept. Because that's the critical part. Not what you won't accept. That's easy. Okay, you won't accept cheating. You won't accept somebody steals your money. You won't accept staying out late. You won't accept a guy who watches porn. You won't accept a girl who flirts with guys at work. You got a long list of things you won't accept. I'm still waiting to hear what you will accept, because for everything you don't accept, the further you are away from having a partner, and then you're whining about not having a partner. It's personal responsibility. It's up to you. You have to find a happy medium. Nobody can choose that for you. And another thing why I make videos for ladies is because women, y'all have power now. Women's rights is official. It's a thing. Now that you have power, you have to also acknowledge that you have responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility. Ladies, you are the CEO of your life. You are the CEO. You are responsible for all the people that you bring into your life. You are responsible for the people that do work in your corporation. You are. The buck stops with self. Each of us, we are responsible. And men know this inherently. Society has taught men that we are responsible. But what we didn't give women that power. Women have the power now. Ladies, if you're in a bad marriage, that's part of your responsibility. It's your job to vet your husband. It's your job to know that he's the kind of guy that's going to do the things that he says he's going to do. It's your job to take your time to get to know him. It's your job to not get pregnant before you're ready to have a baby. You can't both have it that it's women's choice. Right? I agree with that. Women's choice, Roe v. Wade, women's choice, women's health. It's your choice. But then when it comes to the baby, now all of a sudden, hey, I didn't know what happened. You better know what happened. It's a luxury that men have to not have to carry a human being within us. It's a luxury. We're very fortunate. That also allows us to do these horrible things in shirking our responsibility to our children. We can just walk away. We can be like most other mammals, bears, lions, tigers. We could just walk away. Ladies, my father taught me when you think of a concept, you look to nature to verify your concept. Ladies, as mammals, the 99% of the mammals, children are cared for by the female. The cubs are cared for by the female. Ladies, it's not as easy for you to walk away from your cub. So if you know that, you know it's going to be growing inside of you, you know to birth it, then you have to take the responsibility for that process prior to the process. You can't be having unprotected sex with a guy you don't know and then upset that he doesn't pay child support. You didn't know him. You could have guessed that he wasn't going to pay child support. It's your job to find that out before you have a baby with him. Before you let him, as my boy Kay has been saying, shoot up the club. And I'm a father. This is what I'm preaching to my child. I care that my daughter knows that no matter what a guy tells her, no matter how unfair it is, the world isn't fair, and the baby's coming out of her body. And you're responsible for everything in your daggone body. From beginning, yes, it's not fair, but it is what it is. And it can't be the case that you're a woman enough to make the decision to have unprotected sex, but you're not woman enough to deal with the fact that you picked a guy who's a scumbag that's not going to pay child support. I say that because I have women in my family who's been with these terrible guys. Hence why I make the same statement. I don't want the next generation to fall into the same my beloved sisters and others fell for with these guys who are useless. And they shame them themselves, but some of them aren't. We know in society today that shame is very, very short resource. People are not as shameful as they should be.
Yeah.
It's terrible that all these men don't care for their children. We talked about this the last time, but on Black men are the number one race of men to separate. But then someone said, well, we also are with children. We spend the most time with our children, mostly because we're coaches, right? We're coaches in sports and so on. The problem is we don't spend time with our children. So it's true that Black men also, of all the groups, spend the most time with children. The problem is they're not our children. Black men will have children with a woman, leave their baby mama and the child, ignore it, pay child support, but most of the time don't pay child support, but then go help another woman raise a child by another man that abandoned that child. What strange circular reason we have there.
Can we pause right there? Pause right there. Let me do the pushback. So you're saying that Black men will be stepdads to other men's children? Is it just Black, or is it other groups of men's children?
All groups. Black men spend the most time with children of all the. That's a very difficult statistic to come by to study, but the statistics show that Black men spend the most time with children. Coaching, caring. They move in with a girl with kids. They're more accepting of moving in and dating women with children for many different reasons, but just for economic reasons. The Black men are some of the lowest income earners in America, so they'll date a girl with kids because they don't have a lot of options of where to go. The Black men will be a stepdad, and I don't even consider it a stepdad if you're not married. They're just dating these girls. They're just living in with these girls. So they will live with a woman with children and to whatever extent help that woman raise those children, to whatever extent, while not doing anything for the children that they actually birth. Nothing. They don't know their children. They don't pay child support. They don't help in any way, but they're helping another woman raise other children that another Black man had and didn't and is. It's the most peculiar, backwards, circular damn statistic in the world. It's so strange.
To be honest with you, I look at beyond backwards. I look at some insanity. As you know now, Paco, a good portion of men in space are pushed back the stepdaddy role now. Which my thing with stepdaddy, I don't I'm not a proponent now in this modern era we're in now, but let's say if a dude's going to be playing with that, you better have kids already by somebody else if you're going to be stepdad by anybody else's kids. But like I said, I'm not really fond of the stepdad now because of the mindset of the ladies today. But to find that most men, if they're not fathers with the children, some of them, I can't say all because we're going to be honest. We're not going to say all because that's too much right now for a lot of dudes. And there will be pushback for this, and that's fine. That my thing is this, that if the men that's doing what they're supposed to do, they should be moving accordingly. If you're not having the kids, you should not be stepdad other people's kids, in my opinion. You should be doing and try to hope to create your own legacy and family, by all means, So to find that, we will stepdad to other groups of men, whether it is coaching and stuff, or just another relationship with another woman, particularly non-black. And it's interesting you mentioned that if you go outside the country, and mind you, we're going to do a pause for a second. The call line is open. You see the link. Come up, ask your questions now for all those that want to have any dialogue, pushback, whatever. The line is
Chaos.
Yep, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I gotta say something to whoever Afro Nation just posted a lie in the chat, and I don't like lies. So
let me read it first.
Afro Nation National.
Let me read it first. There is a stepdaddy epidemic. Truth is majority. Black men have no choice but to date a woman with kids. 60% of Black women already have two or kids by multiple men.
So, two important lies there. I'll address the smaller one than the bigger one. It's not true that 60% of Black women have two or more kids. That's a number he made up out of he or she. I don't know. They just made that out of thin air. I guarantee you there's no statistic that they could share to support that statement. It is not true that 60% of Black women have two or more kids. You and I talked about our culture and the children in our culture, and it's only 30% of people having babies now. So everyone knows in the United States, the birth rate is down. If the birth rate is down for all of America, that African American, the word American is in there with African. African Americans aren't aliens from a different planet. They're Americans. So if the birth rate for America is down, that includes the African American community. Only 30% of any community is having babies right now. The birth rate is down 60%. It's not up in African American community 60%. We couldn't have it be up for Black women without it being up for the whole damn community. So we know that statistic is wrong. It's not up. Most Black women do not have two or more kids. Most women in general don't have two or more kids because people are having less babies. So that's wrong. That's a lie. The second part is, how do you say that there's no choice? So if Afro National could call in, I'd like to hear, now that I've debunked your terrible statistic, but how do you say that Black men have no choice? What does that mean, we have no choice? I'm a Black man. I have no choice but to date a woman with children. How does that make sense? The one thing I have is choice. Now what I need to do is have personal responsibility, but I can choose to date a girl with or without children, just like I could choose to impregnate a woman, just like I could choose to have children with a woman or not. In my case, I had a vasectomy because I've chosen not to have children. So if I could choose not to do something, I sure as heck can choose to do that, or vice versa. So I don't even understand the concept. The truth is the majority of Black men have no choice. What does that even mean? That sounds like an excuse, because Latino men and white men are having, their birth rates are higher than their birth rates are also about the same. And they also date African American women. So why is it that Black men have this magical barrier that they can only date women with children? A lot of Black men have chosen to date outside the race. What is that? How is it possible that Black men have no choice but to date? You see, when you say things, you got to think it through. And then you could tell by a person's comment if they're selling you propaganda or if they're actually knowledgeable about the subject. Clearly, common sense tells you that in a country of 330 million people, and we Black men only are about 20 million of us, surely we could find—
Which is only 6%, roughly 6%, they say. 6%.
Yeah, we're 6%. So the whole race is 14%. So there's only 20 million Black men, 19 million, 20 million. Surely 19 million men could find women with no children. Other 290 million people. I'm sure that each one of us, the African American community is so small that every single Black man can easily never date a Black woman if we wanted to choose. So let's just say Children, if we don't like that, we could just go date the other women who don't have children. But it's a lie. It's not true. We can date Black women because Black women don't inherently have a ton of children everywhere. That's some crap that they sell you on the news channels to make Black people look worse. Black women, along with Americans, are not having as many children. You can find a woman that doesn't have children. The problem is, if you don't have the qualifications, if you don't meet the criteria, if you don't bring to the table something valuable to a woman without kids, why is she going to date you is the point. Why would a girl who's going to school and got her life together and has avoided having children date a guy who has a bunch of kids?
One thing before you continue, Paco. Shit, I think I'll lose my train of thought a little bit. I will say this: that they already project in this decade alone that it's already at 1, but now they said it might not be even 1 now. This is the projection. Now I don't go wholly say this is going to be factual, but they said they are project when our communities side that some of the sisters now are warning off not having kids at all. This is just a speculation. I don't want to go factual because I had to see it now. The outcome if it's true or not. But if it's down to 1 in the last decade, 2 to 1, they said in the mid part of 2020, this decade is going to be pretty much not even 1. So as you know, the birth rates all across the board is down. You know, people think
I said that.
And here's the funny thing. And even with the artists that sing songs like Tama said they have something on their mind. A woman named, the artist, that young chick from Tennessee. I'm not gonna name it. Y'all know who I'm talking about. That she's only in her early 20s and she's not even thinking of having any kids. And trust me, she lives in a state or a section of a state where it's known that very small portion of the men, not all, but a good portion of them are having like a good portion of a lot of kids, these sisters, by the small groups of men. And there's things out there that does exist, but is a majority of the whole? No. That's when we look at when someone wrote about NBA Youngboy and Nick Cannon. Nick Cannon is a millionaire. That's
yeah.
I can't use millionaires as an example personally because they got the money to meet the need for those women.
But wait. That's an inaccurate statement. They have the money to provide the money, but as we said earlier in this conversation, providing money for a child is only a third of what the child needs. At best, at the most, you give money.
At best.
So Nick Cannon is financially able to have dozens of children, but there's what people are saying who are being fair to him is that he doesn't have the ability to spread himself out amongst all those children. So what is he going to give them besides money? Is he going to be a father to them? Giving them money does not make you a father. How is he going to, this is my example. I said, how is Nick Cannon going to deal with it when 4 of his kids are graduating high school the same day, or going to the same prom the same day, or going to the same, college acceptance, you know how you go to the college acceptance tour and you want to pick a college and you want to talk to the dean and see if this is the right one. How are they going to access him for the important things that he needs when it's more of one of them that needs it at the same exact time? Any of us who have high school age children or who have a bunch of children, we know that when your child is in school, your children have activities that all the children have. So a graduation is a graduation. Your kid can't have a graduation at the date that's convenient for you. They have the graduation at the time they have the graduation. We all go out to the restaurants and we see all the kids at prom. We see all the kids at homecoming. So many schools do the same activity on the same date. What's Nick Cannon going to do when he's got 4 kids in 4 states having the same activity that's important on the same date? What is he going to do? How's he going to spread himself out? It's not possible. So yes, he can pay for all the prom dresses and all the suits and the nice cars and the dinner, but he can't be a father to each of them at the same time in different places. And that's the bigger problem. The money is great, but he's still going to fail them inevitably. He doesn't have 4 kids. He has them all with different women spread all over the damn place.
But let's be honest, Paco. Let's let the notion that that's all a man. Let's be honest. They think that's just enough. Have the money, you're good. If you show up, you show up, but you're mostly busy. You don't have time to be there actually every day or just when it's needed because you're already fulfilling the bigger need. So my biggest question, Paco, how important is it that a man should be just involved enough, depending on what he's doing, to the development of his children? Especially
I think it's critically important. I wrote a paper for my nephews, three of my nephews. I sent it to them, and I said, "What does it mean to be a man?" And I created the 12 pillars of manhood, and I said that one of the early good hygiene, timeliness, and you have to care for someone other than yourself. You're not a real man if you only care for yourself. So let's say you are making money and you don't have children. If you don't care for the people who birthed you, who brought you into this world, you're not a real man. If you don't help your mother and father as they get older, which is the literal circle of life, it's inherent in the moment you're born. Your parents are making a gamble, an investment in you, not for money, but because at some point they're going to be like a baby, like you were when you were a baby. You're going to be adult. Hopefully you'll be healthy enough to care for them. So if you're a real man and you have no children, but you care for no one, you're not a real man. If you're of man age, and you have no children, but you're not caring for anyone, you're not a real man, because your parents are going to need your help at some point. And also the community needs your help. You children to volunteer as a coach. You don't have to have children to be a referee. You don't have to have children to be a tutor. You don't live in a world alone. And if you decide to move out into the woods alone by yourself and just you get a special waiver there that I don't count you. If you said, I'm going to live out there, I'm going to build my own stuff, drink fresh water from a lake, fish, that's a different thing. But if you're in society, if you're in a city or a town or a neighborhood, and all you do is care for yourself, whether you have children or not, you're not a real man. And this is important for us to know. Humans are social creatures. And as a humanist, I think that the best we have in this world are our fellow humans. And we are at our best when we're helping our fellow humans. And being a man should mean that we are helping someone, and as many someones as we possibly can. And if you have a bunch of children like Nick Cannon, and all you could do is pay, it makes no sense. Why are you doing that? What benefit do you do by forcing these children? Remember, I always say we force children into the world. They didn't ask to be here. We forced them here. You have a bunch of children, a bunch of baby mamas. For what? What is your purpose? Why isn't 1 or 2 or 3 enough? Why do you need 12? Why do you need 13? What are you trying to accomplish? You are just being selfish, and you don't care. You're not accomplishing anything. You're not going to hire all of them to work with you and wilding out. That's not what you're trying to do. You're not actually going to make your own sports endeavor and have a football team. That's not what you're trying to do. You're just being selfish. You're just saying, F it, I can do this and women will let me do it. And so I'm going to do it. And then I get to make the excuse I have money. That's not enough. There's more to raising a child. There's more to making a healthy human than giving it money. And Nick can't do the more. He can only do that one little thing. Or he's going to do more with one of his children or 2 of his children, and he's going to leave the other 12, the other 10 unattended. And if we did the math, if any school you go to, if you have 12 questions on a test and you only get 2 right, you don't pass. That's not a passing grade. Hell, you can't get 6 out of 12 right and get a passing grade. You can get 2 out of 3 right and get a passing grade. And that's not a very good passing grade, is it? I mean,
no, I'm not. I think that's
it's a barely passing grade.
I think that's like 66%.
It's 66%. That's a D. So I'm saying Nick Cannon is being extremely irresponsible because he's not going to be a good father to those children, and he should be, because he owes it to them. He doesn't owe it to me. He doesn't owe it to anybody else. He owes it to those children to be there for them and give and support them and invest in them in more ways than just money, so that they could be relatively healthy, that they could have a roof over their head. What about all the other little things, the things that your dad did for you and my dad did for me and our coaches did for us and our teachers did for us, for people who don't have a living parent, that they don't know their biological dad, for the guy who was there for you, for your deacon or your truck driver? There's lots of things. The person who, like in my school, I'm sure many schools had an automotive class, and I went to a technical school. I went to actually 2 high schools. I graduated from 2 different high schools at the same year. One of my high schools was a tech school where I met my first daughter's mother, and we were going together for a while. And in that school, I learned architecture, and people were learning plumbing, and people were learning how to cook. And so being a man and contributing to society, raising a child is much more than a check. How can you do that with 12 children spread out, mind you? In other countries, when I was in Saudi Arabia, some of the men had 10, 12 children, but they all worked together. He always spent time with all of them. They were either in the same house or they were in a home that he went to regularly. So he'd have 4 children in one house. He saw them, Monday and Wednesday. He had 3 children in another house. He saw them Tuesday and Thursday. And he had the other 4 children in the third house. He saw them Saturday, Sunday. He's there with them. Is Nick Cannon doing that? Does Nick Cannon see his children, all of his children, every week? Is it reasonable for us to assume that Nick Cannon sees every single one of his children at least once a week?
I mean, well, yes, now it's 10 kids now. Is that the number? Can anyone in the chat room say how many kids he has? All right, so that means he has roughly 7 or 8 and maybe 9 baby mamas. Maybe allegedly. I could be wrong. But my thing is this, Paco, and then we're going to shift gears. And I'm going to read the chat room briefly after this. If they're not under one household or 2 households that he can get close proximity, having multiple children, regardless if you have the money or not, is fruitless and is wasteful in the 21st century, in my opinion. And the reason why I say is because, let's be honest, even if you got it like that, you want sex. Because what outcome you get if you have another baby mama, and a woman agrees to it because you got money. Now imagine in the chat room. Let me read this. Where is it? By Afro Nations. There are poor men with 30 plus kids, and women are aware he has tons of other children. My question to that is, to a lot of these women that's getting knocked up, let's be fair and honest. You might agree with this. I have to push back on this. A lot of these women that's getting knocked up by one man and then they're not knowing more about the man, that's on them. And I think most people that chose to be baby mama number 20, 25 or so, they're not really investigating if these dudes got 1 or 2 baby mamas. Let's keep real. We forgot about the Rolling Stone. Papa was a Rolling Stone. No one didn't know that he had other kids.
I remember.
Until he died. Well, yeah. I'm just using an example. We're not focusing on women. We're focusing on dudes. When the man gone, right? You see all the family members, even the kids that you didn't know, brothers, just come out. They come out full force. Because women don't really go in and really investigate how many children you might have or you alleged have. They're not like that. You as man, you might more invested depending where your status is in life. But not most women, when they see a dude and they like it, they will entertain it. They're not gonna ask much questions. And as you know, Parker, a lot of dudes been harping on women that they should do more investigation on this. But let's be honest, because women have more rights and have freedom, they always go by their desires of what they're more attracted to something. That gives the high proclivity for them to procreate with a certain set of males that they deem worthy to their eyes, whether it's looks, charisma, or etc. The average man today, because the advent of technology, in my opinion, it makes us more socially awkward. We don't develop any other skills besides getting up, working, and coming home. And we need to be more versed if we're going to deal with this 21st century. You can't do the same thing what everybody's done for the last couple of decades. Hell, there are people that's still running and operating politics that was done back in the 60s, my dude.
Fact.
Where is the progression, the evolution of a really adapting and moving progressively? There is none when it comes to us in this artificial environment. Let me keep going down the chat room. Let's see who else. Not necessary by Patrice Renee. I agree with that point. It's reckless, but bro, not accepting women are accepting that arrangement. Okay. And then you wrote something, Dr. Pop. Nick Cannon is not a child support. If he was, maybe that will be difficult. If he was, possibly. Next, Dr. Blaque came in late, but you're letting women off the hook from what I'm hearing. Next comment.
Yo, I gotta say that I'd say into National, I'm not letting women off the hook. I actually said it in a comment that as a man, I got to start with myself. I'm preaching personal responsibility, so I have to speak about men's actions first because I'm a man. If a woman was preaching personal responsibility, she might start with women. So I'm just starting with men, but I'm not letting women off the hook. I literally have a channel discussing with women they could make corrections, improvements, and so on, how we all could be better. So saying that I'm letting women off the hook, you might have come in late, so you haven't heard. I'm not trying to say disparaging thing about men or women. I'm trying to point out flaws and give solutions better. That's not letting women off the hook. And we probably disagree about what to hold women accountable for. I don't feel like a lot of people should be holding other people accountable. I feel like we should hold ourselves accountable. So if you're saying women need to be held more accountable, so you and I are already disagreeing, because I'm saying we need to hold ourselves accountable. I need to hold myself accountable, and you need to do the same, and she needs to do the same. I'm not preaching about how the idea of holding other people accountable is fruitless. How are you going to force a person to be something better? All you're doing is whining, complaining, arguing with folks on social media. We're not holding other people accountable. I said earlier, we're trying to shame people into being better, and that's not working. People are shameless. Look at the previous president and what he's doing right now. Look at the guy running for Georgia. Look. I mean, if you're not into politics, but look at again, Mark Zuckerberg selling our information and lying about it to us, to Congress. People are shameless. What are we going to do to hold people accountable? I don't see that being very likely. What I can do is hold myself more accountable. And I can hold myself to the highest standards, which will eliminate some of the people who won't do that. If I'm holding myself to high standards, then a person who's not holding themselves to similarly high standards will be obvious to me. So personal responsibility is helping me choose kind of people in my life. If you're out there dating, I say, go out there and do the things that make yourself your best. Go to college, go to training courses, go to tech, lessons, get licenses. If you're doing that and you're dating, you will be dating people who are also doing that, because you'll see those people that are in the places where you're going to be a better you. That makes it harder for you to complain about the kind of person you're getting, because at least you know that the person that you see in the library studying when you're studying, in the course getting the class while you're getting the class, in the university learning when you're learning, if you date those people, you at least know one thing. You know that they have a similar set of goals as you do. And to me, that makes them more valuable than being in the club. You don't know anything about the person you talk to in the club. The music is loud. You can't barely hear anything. Then you're inebriated. You're not even in your right mind. So you can't complain about the kind of person you get out of the club. You didn't give yourself a chance to get a good pick. But you give yourself a chance if you're making yourself better, and you choose from the people who are like you, making themselves better in a similar way. Does that make sense, Chaos?
It makes some sense. Makes sense. A little bit, I'm
back to the chat.
Yeah, I'm back to the chat room. And Carl and Afro Nation said this. Maybe he'll have, maybe you have. I have to go back. Yeah, you go back. I mean, depending on what time you came in the stream. Paco said a lot. So, like I said, let's go back to the stream at the end. The stream concludes. Afro. Let's go for the comments. When a man has sex with a woman, high is to take her as his wife. And there is a difference between fornication and having children out of wedlock. Polygamy to build legacy. Okay. And another thing, fact, men, we need to hold ourselves accountable and control whom we plant our seeds always. Yeah, don't worry about it. All right, shifting gears. And I'm going to stay for a little bit longer, guys. Not too long, but I pinned it on top for those who want to come in and have the conversation with Dr. Blaque and me. Now, one thing to shift another gears again. We talked about this, Paco, and this will get lost in rotation or shuffle. How these men, a good portion that got the money or whatever, how they said they just go outside the country, go find wives, and the problem is solved in regards to the Western woman here. Any really necessary pushback on that for men that's trying to find a wife?
Yeah, there's pushback on that. So the people who are espousing this, we had someone who was arguing with us a couple shows back on this topic who doesn't have a passport. Then we had another person argue with us who had only been to Brazil. So they'd only been to one country, and they've determined that they figured out the whole international dating game. It's nonsense. And mind you, they didn't even succeed. They didn't have a Brazilian girlfriend at the time. They didn't bring her back. They never went to the international fiance visa process. They're not married. But they were telling us how they tell other people how to do something that they haven't done. Remember earlier in my conversation, I said, don't take advice from people who aren't doing what you want to emulate, right?
Correct.
They have to achieve what you want to achieve in order for their advice to be valid, because you don't want to be the guinea pig to find out if they're telling you the truth. You want their life to be the example of the truth. So the pushback on international dating is you lie to yourself if you think you're going to go overseas, get some poor girl. And mind you, I say poor relatively. The United States is the #1 largest economy in the world, has been for over 50 years. We have the highest rate of income per capita. And so inherently, to another country, you're going to make more than the people in other countries. A girl working at McDonald's of the exact same age is making 10 times or 100 times what a girl in Brazil or Colombia or Nigeria or not South Africa. South Africa's economy is pretty decent, or Namibia. So you're making 100 just working at McDonald's. Imagine if you have a real job. Imagine if you're an engineer, or if you're a doctor or a lawyer or a nurse practitioner. You're making a lot more money than the average person in the other countries. But if you think you're going to go get this relatively poor person and bring them back to America, because remember, those countries, the people are making less. The country's economy doesn't compare to the United States, or the comparison is very low. So are you going to stay there? Okay, let's assume you do the practical thing and you bring her back to this country that has more of everything. When you bring them back here, away from their structure of poverty, and you show them everything better, and you say to them, you have to wait on me hand and foot. I'm writing a check. You're my quote unquote servant. You're my old school traditional wife. Good luck, because that person is going to be exposed to the culture of openness and women's rights that they didn't have in their own culture. And we're going to see how far that love goes. I can assure you, because I see it, that love doesn't go that far. People love them. If love exists, people love themselves more than they love others. Selfishness is part of existence. The first rule of life is self-preservation. It's normal for humans to be selfish. So if you bring some poor girl from her country overseas back to America, because America you need, or a better version of what you need, and you expose her to women's rights and freedom of choice, like I said earlier, when you give a human an option to choose, they will choose it. And she's unlikely to stay with you if all you can say was, I took you out of your poor country. You have to be a quality person to keep a relationship going for decades and decades and decades, like marriage is supposed to be. And very few people who go overseas to find a partner are the kind of quality persons that will keep a relationship together. They're going overseas because they want a cheat code. They want to go the easy route. And there is no easy route for marriage. There's no easy route for anything that lasts for decades. Why are less people doctors and lawyers than teachers and daggone sanitation workers? Because it takes 12 years of college level studies to be a doctor. That's on the college level. That's not even 12 years it took you to get through high school. A lot of people don't want to do that. I personally don't want to put in the work to be a doctor. I'm sure there are many other people who don't. And that's why doctors are more revered. The more time you have to work at something to achieve a standard, the more difficult that thing is. Marriage is even harder than becoming a doctor, much than becoming a doctor. And it's because it's supposed to last long. The standard is so astronomical. It's forever. A very confusing word. None of us are going to live forever, but we're trying to stay married forever. It's difficult. So if you think you're going to just go grab you some poor girl and tell her, listen, be happy that I took you out of your small village as a little goat farmer's daughter, she'll be happy for a year or so. But did you ever ask her what she really wants in life? You are a stepping stone to her. You are a path to something for her. You're not her ideal husband, unlikely, especially if you never asked her what her ideal husband is like. And I say this as somebody who's seen hundreds of men get divorced by the poor women that they took from their humble beginnings and brought them to. It's very standard. I'll tell you guys something that you wouldn't know. A quick story. There's something and this is not it's not something you would really know unless you visit. There's something in Thailand called the Bangkok Flying Club, and the Bangkok Flying Club is not a pilot's group or what are those little drone flying group. The Bangkok Flying Club is a group of men who are labeled this after their passing. And what causes them to die is that they invest in a Thai woman who tells him everything he wants to hear and treats him very nicely when he comes, usually a European guy. And she waits on him hand and foot when he comes to visit. And she convinces him to send her his retirement and trust her and maybe even marry And when he comes back to Thailand to enjoy his retirement, she's stolen all the money and she's already married to a local. So, there's nothing he can do. She doesn't have to divorce him or anything. And she just took his money. It took his whole retirement, not just his money, his whole retirement. So he climbs up to the tallest building that he can find and jumps off.
Oh, wow.
And this is actually a real thing. I didn't make any of this up. Obviously, it's not millions of men, or it'd probably a news story, but it's a thing. Many people are taken advantage of by things. We live in one of the most scam artist countries in the world. But to think that you're going to go to a poor person's country and because you have more money, you're going to outsmart them. Good luck. I hope you don't end up in the Bangkok Flying Club like many have who come before you, and that you can offer someone more than money for their servitude. I am habitually, overtly against that your wife is supposed to be your servant. I do not expect or require servitude or submission. A lot of people in this space like to talk about having a life and your woman being submissive and so on. And good luck to you. I don't see a lot of people succeeding in that. I see people trying it and failing at it. It works for a little while and then it doesn't work after very quickly. I don't look for that. But if you're going to take that, know that it's a highly unlikely that you're going to succeed, because you can't make a person unsee certain things. And you can't make a poor girl from a foreign country unsee freedom once you bring her to the most free country in the world. You can't take away her choice that the government has given her, and you can't make divorce have a different path legally that it already had. So you marry her, you brought her here, and the government's going to give her half when she leaves you.
Shit.
You have a choice. You could be a better person, and you could marry a person for something more substantive than the shallow concept of I'm paying you to be my servant. You don't have to get married if all you want is a servant. You were talking earlier about buying sex. Will support you day in, day out. And I guarantee you it's cheaper to have a prostitute than to marry a girl and let her take half. It's much cheaper to have a prostitute. It's the same exact thing. If you ever watch House, one of the storylines in the show House, the doctor, he had a prostitute that he ended up marrying her to help her to get citizenship. It wasn't about the sex. He liked her. She liked him. She could do, one of her criteria was she used to be able to fix a stove. So when he tried to replace her with another prostitute, he was like, you got to be able to, not a stove, a toaster oven. It's much cheaper to get a prostitute, because buying a poor person from another country is very close to prostitution. You're lying when you say you love her. She's just poor. And she's lying when she says she loves you. You're just rich.
Okay.
What else do you have to offer that? Right?
Right. Okay. Damn. Make sure, guys, hit the like button, share button, etc., etc. And please donate. As you know, my good friend Queen's Verse put the what do call these? Not super chat. Where you could donate to the channel. All right, Carl, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, what's good, Carl? I'm not sure how long you've listened. What's
good, Carl?
What's going on, guys? How you doing?
I'm good. All right, go ahead. If you have any questions, feel free to speak up.
Blaque made some really good points, some really good pointers. And one of the things that I heard you say is to whether man or woman, you have to make sure that you wouldn't be unequally yoked, with someone that's probably not in your mindset, because then you're just signing up for headaches. If a person don't have like a teachable spirit, whether a man or woman, but we know at the end of the day, I would say that a man is to be able to lead his household. I would say that a man is
Hello? Is my thing working?
I'm still here. I think we lost Carl though.
No, Carl.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, repeat your sentence, because the signal for some reason acted up.
Okay. Okay, my bad. I think I was touching the points that Mr. Blaque made on submission. And I talked a bit about submission and how it got a bad notation, because in everything that we do, has to be some type of following and leading. It's not in a way to diminish the person that's following you, but we do know that the teamwork is required. I know what has happened, you know, especially with the American history of blacks being here. I don't know if you guys are familiar with, you know, the whether it be the Willie Lynch letters, because you can't look at every couple as the same,
Yeah.
because us blacks have been through a specific type of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good. I don't know why Carl's.
Yeah, Carl, let me jump in. You're
Wait,
right.
wait, wait, wait. Carl, do me a favor. Jump down, jump back in. Maybe it's the signal issue because when
Okay,
we first said
can
that
you hear me now?
I can hear you now. No, just exit the studio, come back
Okay.
in, and see if it'll recalculate. Because
Okay,
I'm not
gotcha.
sure. Try that right
Okay.
now.
Well, let me comment on a couple of things that Carl was saying while he was commenting. I want him to finish what he was saying about the Willie Lynch, but I totally agree. A marriage, like every relationship, is a form of partnership. Now, if you get to decide how much of a partner you want and how much a partner you want to be, and so you don't have to get married. You can have different levels of relationship. You don't have to become the boss of your company. If you get hired, you could stay, you know, as an intern, as long as they'll let you. You could stay as a lower level employee as long as they let you. You can stay as supervisor, manager. A lot of people say, I don't want to move up to the management level. I've been in the company 20 years. I don't want to move up to management level. I'm comfortable here. I don't want to deal with the headache. And so he used a phrase that I like, but I don't like to use because it's a religious reference. But equally yoked is so important. And a lot of people have been saying in the last 40 years that you should marry your best friend. And that is the point, the equally yoked. You marry your best friend because you already have established the highest level of love and camaraderie for that other person. All you're adding is a legal commitment and maybe a little bit more intimacy. But if you can make a girl your best friend and marry her, that's going to give your marriage a chance because you two are already equally yoked. You've already passed maybe the most important hurdle of finding someone who appreciates you for you and you appreciate them for them. That you already have an understanding of the lines that you two will cross and won't cross. You two already, agree on, if you're the kind of person that they want to keep in their life, and if they're the kind of person you want to keep in your life. So Carl hit the nail on the head with the equally yoked. It matters overtly. There's no limit to how much that matters. And hence why I say you need to have at least a year in the fiance stage living and doing everything, because you can't know someone and they can't be a real best friend and you can't really truly love them after knowing them for a week. I say that as someone who fell in love with my wife, love at first sight. But the love at first sight wasn't enough to marry her. I met my wife. I've told the story many times. I met my wife in 2008, and we didn't get married until 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw her, I thought she was gorgeous. Not just beautiful externally or really cute. I thought she was gorgeous. She had the baby glow. She was married, and I didn't know the guy, and she didn't know me, and I didn't date her for 6 years or 4 years. I didn't date her for 4 years. But the moment I saw my wife, I was very taken. That's not enough to get married. And if I had asked her to get married and she said yes at that time, she wouldn't have been making a good decision and I wouldn't have been making a good decision. But by the time we got married 10 years later, she was my best friend. She qualified to be my wife in many, many, many ways. That's what my book is breaking down. How to line up these qualifications so that you can give yourself a chance. There's no guarantees in this life, but you give yourself a chance by setting it up like a business. Carl, go ahead and finish what you were saying about the Willie Lynch and stuff.
Yes. So like I was saying, with Willie Lynch, which is one of the most popular, I think it was the most published experiment that happened, to to melanated. And we know what the goal was. A lot of the goal was to kind of like on how to break the mindset and the principles that the black man had along with his woman. And not to dive too much into it, if you haven't read it, I'm pretty sure like most probably would have. So if you haven't really read it or listened to it, check it out. And to kind of like retouch on the being unequally yoked part, that could serve in any manner. It's not everyone you could do business with. It's not everyone you can have in a project.
Facts.
If you don't stand on the same principles, if you don't stand on the same moral values, you're bound to have, you know, much graver issues than the mere little disagreement. Because if you can have a disagreement with someone and it can be constructive where you work together to solve an issue rather than just blatant, you know, opposites. And I don't want to say that it's taken a religious approach to it, because then we do have to pay attention to a person's background, you know, what they practice in their homes, man or woman. I do read the scriptures, and even in the scriptures it says to not stumble at the beauty of a woman nor seek her for pleasure. And a lot of us at our especially in America, you know, where we know everything has been overly sexualized. Even during slavery, we were overly sexualized for the sake of reproduction. And it's not to say that we're delving on the past, but to know where we are, we kind of have to know where we came from as well. You know, out of fornication and just falling into just blatantly having sex for physical satisfaction before knowing how to put together a family and how to lead properly, how to provide, how to love with respect, without, you know, with clarity and authenticity. So when we say the word submission, not to confuse you guys, it is very much required, because the man is to submit to a principle as well. If the man is to lead, but he's never followed, how would he learn to lead?
Yeah, so I want to answer that question if you don't mind, Mr. Carl.
Yeah, please.
I respect a person's view, and there are men and women who agree with you, and if that works for them, so be it. For those of us who that doesn't work for, the reason I don't advocate for submission is because, look at the business principles I'm talking about. You don't submit to your boss. You don't submit to your supervisor, and they don't submit to you. And what I was going to say earlier was a phrase you just talked about, leadership. Because I studied leadership in my management degree, it's my field. One of the best sayings is to be a good leader, you must first be a good follower. So when people talk about submission, they talk about those who are submitting to us as the leader, but we don't talk about what we have had submitted to or what we need to submit to be good followers before we become good leaders. And I don't think submission is a requirement. And I don't see anywhere that proves that it is. People recommend that or people suggest that. And that's obviously, you're right. Obviously, you could try that if it works for you. But I know a lot of people who are successful without submitting to anything. Just like the word worship. I know people who don't worship. I don't worship anything. If anything, the closest thing I come to worshiping is my wife. So unlike you, I'm not into the scriptures, but a lot of people say you need to worship. Or you guys, I don't know if you've heard of this show on Netflix called Blind Date or dang, I forgot the name. I'm sorry. It's like people get they dating in these pods, and then if they like each other in the pods, then they propose, and then they have to get married in like 30 days. And it's an experiment to see if that's the name of it. Love is Blind is the name of the show. And you guys should check it out because it touches these important questions. What is love? How deep is love? Can you love someone without physically seeing them? And these are critically important questions. I personally wouldn't be on that show, but it does help us to look at some of the things that are more important than the external physical things. But I don't see how one could prove that submission is a requirement. Because in business, we don't submit, and business is the best system for success. The most successful relationships in the world today and possibly ever that humans endeavor upon are business relationships. That has the highest rate of success. That's why everything is run by business. So if businesses don't have submission as a requirement, why would we do that for anything else other than we were told that by people who have failed at relationships? Remember, the submission concept comes from our religious past, and religion is what led us to 50%, almost 60% divorce rate now.
Would you say that businesses don't have a CEO?
No, I wouldn't, because businesses do have a CEO. And it also gives us opportunity to be the CEO. Not only do business currently have a CEO, but you and I could eventually become a CEO depending on what business we get into.
Right. And the first, okay. But there's still a hierarchy in most businesses, and we know
absolutely no hierarchy is there. I agree
to follow in businesses.
I don't mean to cut you off, sir. I'm agreeing with you. Okay. There's a hierarchy. What I'm saying is submission is not important. The hierarchy is important. But if you think about it, most businesses today don't have a single source. A buck stops here, one individual that it depends on. Even Elon Musk was removed from as a president CEO for Tesla, because businesses have learned that you can't invest all in one person. Most businesses have a board. And most boards are more powerful than the CEO. The CEO, like our U.S. president, is usually the face of something.
Right.
But
And they
power
all
is really
adhere
with
to
the
a common
Congress.
principle.
What I'm saying is, that's correct, sir. You're right. But what I'm saying is submission is not required. The board doesn't submit to the CEO, and the CEO doesn't submit to the board. What's critical, what in every instance, what's required is fairness and equality. People knowing their role and being treated fairly.
People submit to that principle. It's to that principle where we submit to, and we become a community, because we have a common agreement.
I respect you that you call it submission. I don't call it submission. I agree that people live up to it or aspire to it, but that the word submission means more than just what we see in business. That we don't see practically in a business the word submission played out. We can call some of what we see in business of submission, but then we're watering down the definition. Submission isn't casual. Submission isn't optional. In a business, the board treats the CEO a certain way because they agreed to, and it's optional. They fail at it all the time. And the CEO treats the board a certain way, and they fail all the time. No one is submitting. No one's relinquishing. No one's saying no. People don't just take a step back because one of the powers are stronger. The powers are balanced, so they always have to do a dance. The reason why one doesn't submit to the other, because they have agreed to sharing the power. Submission is not sharing the power. Submission is admitting that you don't have the power. And I don't see that in business, and I don't want that in my marriage. I don't want my wife to ever feel like she doesn't have power. I always want her to feel like I'm sharing the power with her, because she is equally as important as I am. I am not a husband without her. I can't exist as a husband without my wife. And so I want her to know that she has power in that. And I don't want her to feel like she has to give me that power, but that she has power, and her power makes me who I am. I'm not a husband without her. I'm a man without her, but I'm not a husband without her. So the question is, what do you want to be? You are going to be a man, or you're going to be a woman, but do you want to be a wife, or do you want to be a husband? And I don't think submission helps you to get there. Other people disagree, sir. You may disagree, and I respect your right to disagree. I respect you if you disagree, but I don't agree that submission is an important part of a healthy relationship. The people who submitted, and if we use the Bible as an example, everyone who submitted, those who were submitting didn't have power, and ultimately didn't feel good about that. Now, some verses make you pretend to seem like they felt good, but they didn't feel good about that. Human beings don't feel good when they're powerless. I want my wife to always feel empowered, and our life as African Americans and Africans of the West, we are better now that we have grasped some of our power. We're better than our African brothers and sisters in the motherland who still haven't grasped their power. Women are better today because they've grasped their power. I can't be a feminist and advocate for submission because I don't want to submit, and I don't need someone to submit to me. I want my partner to have power, because if I'm inactive, if I'm incapacitated, I don't want to be. And this is a big problem for people who talk about submission. If you are incapacitated, what will happen to your business?
It dies.
Come on now. I don't want that. I want my business to thrive. I have children. I have a legacy. So I don't hoard all the power to myself. I don't keep the power in a centralized location within myself. I split the power with my wife so that if I pass, she's going strong with the kids. And if she passed, I'm not going to be strong, but I'm going to keep going. And that's the problem with submission, the concept of one ultimate power. And if you say it was religious, you always consider this ultimate power, but reality has no such thing. There is no place in life with an ultimate power. So you're dealing with another human being. You're suggesting that you are relevant or equivalent to some semblance to ultimate power, and you're not. You're a human. And I think business principles have taught us to share the power is far better than to hoard it to oneself. That's why we don't have monarchies anymore. And even the one monarchy with the latest monarch who passed, they didn't really have no. It was a show monarchy, right? The King of England is more or less a joke. He's just a figurehead. He's not even a figurehead. He doesn't even make decisions. The Queen of England, she gave up the largest empire ever. She oversaw the largest loss of an empire, maybe in definitely in recent history. So monarchies don't exist. Why? Why don't they exist? because centralizing power is putting you at a greater risk. One person with all the answers or with all the power, when they die, when something happens to them, my aunt sadly had a stroke a few years ago, and she only remembers a third of what she used to. She's almost like a child now in her older age. Very sad. But she had businesses that we no longer have access to, because when you have a stroke and you lose your mind, you don't remember your account numbers, right?
Understood.
It's a very
Understood.
practical thing for me in my life. I've seen what happens when a person with decentralized. So I'm trying to help my aunt to get a nicer place for her to stay and live. And I'm very limited because I don't have access to anything that she's worked all these years for, because she doesn't remember her accounts. I can learn from that. I could be sad, but I could also learn. I could say, hey, wife. So a couple of weeks ago, I emailed my wife with all the passwords to all the accounts that we have that she doesn't normally deal with, but I want her to have it in case.
Right. That's the right thing to do. And
I don't think submission leads you in that direction. I'm sorry, I spoke a very long time.
I don't know that submission is the way you described it. Sounds really tyrannical.
That's the definition, sir. That's what it's been used for in humanity. I didn't make that up. That's how it has been used in society. Now, you are a nicer person, it seems, or you have a watered down kind of version of submission, maybe. But I can recognize your version and also recognize the history of it. I'm doing both. And I think that history it overwhelms your more polite version of submission. So to me, I eliminate submission altogether, while you may be trying to curve and shape submission in a nicer way.
No, it's not in a nicer way, because, excuse me, not to cut you off as well, because at the end of the day, I know that a husband is to love and respect and protect and provide for his wife. You understand? For a man to be able to lead with integrity is, first of all, to hold oneself accountable and to not have self-awareness for asking something from someone and not be that embodiment in yourself first. If there is no submission to anything, I know human nature tends to be wicked. We have history upon history of wickedness, of people, abusing their power, abusing others, pillaging. We already know it. We know it. This is something, man, like you said, it's okay to agree to disagree. That's why it's important to explore mindsets. That's why it's important to explore principles and moral values. So,
I appreciate you saying that, but I'm gonna ask you a quick question before we move on to the next guest.
No. This is what we're gonna do. Ask the question, Parker. I gotta wrap this up because
yeah. All right. So we're wrapping this up. So ask you a quick question, Mr. Carl. If your partner submits to you and you're the final say, but your partner has a better answer, how likely are you going to get to the better answer if you predetermine that you're the final say as a man, right? This is the old-fashioned way of thinking. The man's the automatic leader. And one thing I tell my daughter is, don't ever date anyone who considers a man as automatic leader, because a penis doesn't give you leadership skills. Leadership skills are learned and practiced. They're not genetic. So I don't even believe that men should be the leader. But if there are people out there who do believe that men should be the leader, fine. If you're the leader, the default leader, the automatic leader, but your partner has a better solution than you do, how likely is it for you to get to the best solution? Is it more important for you to be the leader, or more important to get to the best solution? Because if the traditional system, we use a traditional system where the man is the leader and he doesn't have the right answer, like we've seen billions of times, we see billions of men making the worst decision. Don't give the woman the equal power to make the decision. She's submitting to her man. How are we going to get to the better decision in that system?
Now, as a leader, you would know to not have stupid people on your team. So if your team is as wise as you have a wise woman that can look at things in a wise way. You can take wise suggestion.
But sometimes you can't know, right? You're human. You only have so much ability. So being wise is more about living. And the wisest people have made bad decisions. Their wisdom comes from error. So my question is, how can we eliminate some of the error? Because being wise, we admit that we failed at something and now we've learned the lesson. My question is, how can we avoid failing? Right, earlier in the cast, I don't know if you heard in this podcast, we were talking about, I made an analogy of walking down the road and seeing a person. Chaos had asked me, can you trust a person who'd been divorced to give marriage advice? And I said yes, because they've been down the road that I'm headed, and they're warning me about a pitfall ahead, encountered that I haven't yet encountered. So in the same way, wisdom is that. Wisdom is going through that pitfall and surviving and learning. So even if you're a wise husband and you're a leader, you're only, as a human, going to be able to learn from your mistakes. You can't know every time that your partner has a good or right decision, right advice. All kings struggle, all leaders struggle with taking advice. But when your submissive followers are submitting to you, how do you overcome that power to see through? When you're a human, you're going to inevitably miss it. You could not have a submissive and miss good advice.
Can I answer the question again?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. As a wise leader, like I said earlier, to not seek a woman, to not stumble at the beauty of a woman, nor to seek her for pleasure. That means you're not looking at.
Hello?
We're still here.
Yeah, Carl, you repeat your sentence, because now the audio is acting. Now you're in silence. Hello.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, yeah. I'll start over. I'll start over.
Yeah, I'll tell you if your mic goes out.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I don't know if you heard that part, so I'll just repeat it. I said to not stumble, in the book of Ecclesiasticus, it said not to stumble at a woman's beauty, nor to seek her for pleasure. Vice versa for a man, because it tells us to not be carnal or not be vain at the outer look, but look at the person's character. Having character, good character per se, would first of all entails respect, because there's no love without respect. You can't marry. I don't know anyone who would marry a woman that's not wise, that's not already developed, and and it's not to say people don't make mistakes, but when you're brainstorming with someone that you became one with, brainstorming in your own head is coming up with either good ideas or bad ideas. You're knocking them down, critically thinking, making decisions, and we know that both members that have become one are both working for the betterment of the team. Now, like I said again, yes, there has to come to a final decision. We've all had to come, okay, well, should I go left or should I go right? What do you think? You think you're okay? I know you're good in that area. As a king, you should know, or a leader, you know your weaknesses. You're not strong in everything. And especially in your business, you're not gonna hire amateurs in your business neither. You want people that has some type of know-how, some type of knowledge, and people that can also elevate in knowledge too, right? The same way you can elevate. So if your wife that you picked, which is to be a wise woman, and mind you, I'm not even saying intelligent, because smart people make stupid decisions too, but a wise woman that you've already observed, you've seen her, you've vetted her. Not everyone comes from the perfect family, but you can see that where the person's trying to go, and you see this person as someone, hey, you know what? Yo, she could raise my children. And that woman will see you as someone that could be a good leader for their sons and daughters as well. That's the quality they're supposed to be seeing. And if that person gives you ideas and suggestions that could be better than yours, and you're a critical thinker that's not biased, and you could clearly see, I don't know why a person would choose, calamity or a lesser, a worse idea just for the sake of, that would be a really egotistical person.
Just being right. Yeah,
right. That wouldn't be, that would just be like egotistical. You'd rather crash the car just for the sake, just because you want to say, oh, it's me. I don't know about all that. I do know people tend to be really egotistical. Some people I think I read this thing the other day that the biggest flaw is the lack of self-awareness. Your wife to have that respect for you to still be the leader, even when brainstorming with you, seeing when you're making a mistake, the man admitting, oh man, damn, I made a mistake. Yo, thank you, because you're here to have my back the same way I'm here to have your back. You can see when I'm about to stumble and fall. You can see when I'm about to probably make a bad decision. Like, it happens, you know. It happens. I don't know if that answered your question. I know I said a lot, but I don't know anyone that has self-awareness that's able to admit when they're wrong about something. Anyone that values the woman that they married, which is not for their, not out of lust, but out of their character, out of them being wise, out of that person you can see that you can build with. I don't know why that person would disregard good counsel.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Right.
And the chaos. I'm going to say something about that in my closing. So thank you, Carl.
All right, Carl. Before you jump down, Carl, I appreciate you come up here. I wish you came a little earlier, Carl, because I did open up so that the dialogue. Because this is very good. This is very good. I like your answers, how you lay it out, Carl. Very well thought, well said. It's something to really evaluate. And mind you, I don't get much men that talk this, but way how you articulate your answer, I'm very proud, Carl. I hope to hear you soon on a future show when I have.
Oh no, thank you guys for having me, and Mr. Blaque as well. Thank you. It's very informative, and like we said, it's okay to have different point of views, but the point of it being coming together and be able to put these pieces together, and maybe, like I said, we can learn something. You know, then that's all it's about. It's not about bashing one another. I believe that we've all shared some type of trauma. We have all shared a trauma. We're not here to tear each other down. To be quite honest, we need to learn how to come together. We need to learn where a mistake was made, an anomaly was made. It's not about I'm better than you and you're better than me. I know that the feminine energy is supposed to complement my masculine energy. I know that. You know what I'm saying? Even in animals in the jungle know that.
Yeah. Yes.
Animals in the jungle knows what it is, but it's always within us humans where we have the most chaos, the most contention, the most BS, the most manipulation, intimidation, But for us, I would say that our history goes a long way. At the end of the day, I'm just grateful that I'm able to share with intelligent people, or people that's learned through experience, through failures, through mistakes, and we're not trying to hide it and actually owning up to it, because I'm not perfect myself, so I appreciate it.
Thank you, Carl. Until
Thank
next
you,
time.
Carl.
Peace.
Thank you.
All right. Any closings? Well, I hope it's not too lengthy, but I'm gonna let you. The floor is here, Dr. Blaque, because this is a good show. Go ahead. And ask Dr. Blaque gets back to me. Let me check.
Okay, here we go. I'm sorry.
All right, go ahead.
All right. So in closing, first I'd like to thank you, Brother Chaos. And I think we did a much better job of touching the topic and expanding from there. In previous streams, we kind of went into something else. So and we didn't necessarily touch the thumbnail, right? The thing that we were necessarily drawing. So this time I think we did a great job. We talked about Kanye and we talked about marriage. And this was really all about marriage. And that's really my bread and butter. I do not have the secrets to marriage. My solution for marriages is to be a better person individually, personal responsibility, to have an extensive, thorough, long fiance period, and vet the person the most highest level that you possibly can, because trying to make a promise for life is inherently going to be the most difficult and low probability promise that you're ever going to make. So to touch something that Mr. Carl said that I wanted to address on the way out is I don't like the idea of submission. The definition of submission is to always default to someone else. You're submitting to them. That means that they're always the final say and they're always right. And to think that another human being could always be right is absurd. We know each of us make mistakes. Mr. Carl, he also said that humans make mistakes. I agree. We all agree humans make mistakes. Submission was supposed to be from humans to a higher power. But as it is, I don't believe in a higher power, and no one's ever higher power. The highest power I know of is humans. And so at least between humans, there should be no submission. We should always be trying to be fair and trying to rationalize our choices. We won't know how we do it, with submission or without submission, we won't always get it right. But I feel like submission gives us a lower probability of success. And obviously, you and I talked about the business principle of value propositions and probability, and many of us, but in my degree field, specifically focus on the probabilities, because I have to, as a manager, consider many different options, and I have to make recommendations to, and I have to be responsible to my employees. So submission adds a variable that lowers the probability of success. Submission only works if one of the two parties or one of the parties is perfect. Since humans are not perfect, submission is useless. There is no value in submitting to someone that's not perfect. As there is nothing perfect in this universe, not the sun, not anything else. The universe is literally dying. Oblivion is headed our way at more than light speed. We shouldn't waste our time with a word like submission. I think Mr. Carl made a very warm and watered down, nice view of submission and how it could possibly work, but it's all theoretical. In practicality, men are more egotistical than women. There are women with egos, obviously, but men in general are more egotistical. And we have seen, this is not the first generation of humans. We've seen not one or two or 10. We've seen over 200 generations who failed at letting men be the leader based on the fact that he was born with a penis. We've seen what it gets us when the women only submit to men. No matter how you feel about the truth is, this is the best time for humans overall. We have some problems that we shouldn't have, and we're failing at things that we shouldn't be, but we have the longest lifespans, and we have the most income, and we have the most opportunities, and we have the most knowledge. One of the reasons why we have more knowledge today is because only 40, 50 years ago, we started taking women's input as knowledge. We stopped making women submit to us. We stopped making women submit to a man to have the knowledge. Women have contributed overwhelming amounts of knowledge. Women are on every single education level the best students. There isn't a school or education level from K to PhD where men are doing better than women. So the idea that women have to submit to a man to make the thing better is false. It's proven, it's demonstrably false. Women are the smarter of the two genders. If we look at the test scores, men and women can contribute. Men and women can both lead. I'm telling this to my daughters, and I have to say this in closing. Men and women can both lead, and we should choose the best leader with a penis. It does us no good to be the leader just because we have a penis when our wife is better. I listen to my wife on things that I totally don't agree on. And that has served me very, very well, because I don't think that she submit to me. I don't think that I have to be the leader. And I'm sure other men will benefit in the same way if they could open their mind to the fact that we're equal instead of one of us to submit to the other. I think submission blocks us from understanding, of reaching our best levels. That's what I think. That's what I've seen. That's what history has proven. The concept of submission prevents us from getting the best. And I'm always trying to get the efficiency forward. I always try to be as efficient as possible, which includes letting my wife make decisions even when I don't agree. Eliminating submission to open up in that way, and it has allowed me to have more success than I otherwise would. And I think other people should try. I recommend other people try it, and I hope that they have similar success doing it as. Thank you, sir, for allowing me to come on the show, and appreciate your time.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm muted. All right. Parker, you there?
I am.
Oh,
Even though
yeah,
I
yeah. I
finished,
didn't know
even
I
though
was
I
muted.
finished 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, I know.
Even though
You
I
should
mi-
tell me that. You should tell me I was saying things and I was muted the whole time. Anyway,
Yeah.
it gets to guys. You know how it is when you do streaming. Sometimes you don't want background noise. But anyway, the point is this. I read, as you know, I was highlighting the chat room, so it is what it is. To follow Paco, I think Paco is mostly on TikTok. Paco, you might have to give me the TikTok
Yeah,
again.
Dr. Blaque everywhere. Dr. Blaque at Dr. Blaque, DRBLAQUE on TikTok. Y'all go like some of my TikToks, bro. I'm trying to break into that. The TikTok has a lot of conversation about relationships. So go like and share my TikToks. Dr. Blaque, Dr. Blaque on TikTok, Dr. Blaque on Twitter, Dr. Blaque on YouTube. But most of my videos are on TikTok. I'm on the other spots. Dr. Blaque at on Instagram. So if you talk about relationship or you want to hear my ideas, come to TikTok. That's where the kids are these days. That's where the audience is.
Yeah, he goes where the audience at. And also don't forget Facebook as well. So find him on Facebook as well. Anyway, that's it. Thank you, Paco. We're gonna have more conversation on this. And hell, we'll do this abruptly when it deals with this divorce and whatever is something that always has to be constantly hard. It has to be emphasized. And 2023 people be expecting that he will possibly have an actual physical book. Right now,
yes,
this is a very unusual year, but like I said, going on to the next year, things are going to move steadily and things are possible. So
I'm working out the publishing right now, so hopefully it'll be ready by 2023.
Yeah, so for the ladies that's asking, it's coming. It's coming. Be patient. All right, Paco. Thank you. We'll do this again soon. Take care, brother. And for everybody else, you know the drill. I post the links in the chat room. Follow me on Discord. The link is in the chat room. And if you didn't get it through this playback, go on the About section on the Chaos Marine channel on YouTube. Also, follow me on Facebook, Eric Rain on Facebook. And I got Twitter. Please follow me on Twitter at Chaos Rain 7. And that is pretty much it. I don't have any other links. So, and please, people, leave a comment during the end of the stream if you made this far. I know it's lengthy. Personally, if you get to this part, if you leave a comment, ask if you want the timestamps for this. I'm not gonna timestamp everything, but if y'all interested, I will timestamp it for those that's interested. So I'll be reading the comment section on this one. But on that, thank you for listening. Until next time, let us ring.